Parliament by acknowledging that we meet on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. I offer my respects to the Wurundjeri elders, past and present, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Members of the gallery, please note this urban planning meeting is being recorded and web streamed live to Council's website. This recording will also be available as video on demand. Gallery attendees are advised they will be recorded during the meeting. Councillors, just as a reminder that in line with the adopted councillor conduct principles as outlined in the Councillor Code of Conduct, councillors should ensure that they conduct themselves in the meeting with integrity, impartially exercise their responsibilities in the interests of the local community and not improperly seek to confer or advantage any person. This behaviour will support principles for leadership and good governance that secures public confidence in the office of councillor. I'd like first to do some introductions by introducing the councillors in attendance tonight. And those councillors are Councillor Natalie Aboud, Councillor Anna-Olivia Carly-Hannon, Councillor Ali Afanli, Councillor John Kavanagh. Good evening. Councillor Dale Martin. Hi. And Councillor Mark Riley. Good evening. The officers in attendance with us tonight are Group Manager City Development, Philip Priest, Planning Coordinator Darren Camilleri, Planning Coordinator Mark Hughes, Planning Coordinator Narelle Jennings, Senior Urban Planner Ashley Maniti, and Governance Officer Saskia Hunter. I'll now move on to the apologies. We have received an apology from Councillor Helen Davidson, the Mayor, who's currently away. Are there any further apologies we've received? No? Could I have a motion to accept this apology? Councillor Kavanagh, is there a seconder? Yeah. Councillor Riley? No further comment on that? Yes, Councillor Kavanagh.
Councillor Davidson, as you said, there are a couple of other councillors that we are expecting tonight. We haven't moved Councillor Yildiz because since the ceremonial meeting, he's decided to withdraw from the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. I'll now put that apology to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. We're moving now to the adoption of the minutes. Could I please have a motion for the adoption of the minutes of the planning meeting held on the 22nd of March 2017? Councillor Martin, is there a seconder? Councillor Riley. Are there any comments on that one? No, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. We're now moving on to the declaration of interests and or conflicts of interest section, and I believe there are a couple of conflicts to declare, so I'll hand it over to the councillors who wish to declare the conflict.
Yes, I need to declare a conflict to the Pentridge extension. So DED 3217, thanks Councillor Afanli. It's an indirect conflict via my husband.
Thank you, Councillor Aboud. Councillor Afanli?
Yeah, I've got a conflict with DED 2917 30 on Palmer Street. I'm one of the objectors.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Afanli, and welcome Councillor Tapanos to the chamber. So at the time that those matters come before the meeting, each of the respective councillors will leave the room for just that item and return once it's over. I'll now outline how the Urban Planning Committee will run this evening. The relevant planner will introduce the report and officers' recommendations. I'll then give any objectors the opportunity to move to the lectern to make their submission. After this time, the applicant will be given the opportunity to speak. If you're making a submission, please clearly state your name and address for the record. You're requested to present viewpoints clearly and concisely on why you support or oppose the planning application. Please try not to repeat what earlier speakers have said and keep the discussion focused on the relevant issues and points that haven't been raised previously. If you're opposed to a planning application, we'd really like you to inform the committee why you're opposed and perhaps suggest an alternative approach which would satisfy your concerns. And please use this opportunity to focus on your concerns rather than the matters of detail in the officer's report. There's a time limit of 3 minutes for each speaker, but as chairperson, I reserve the right to increase or reduce the time available to any speaker. And if you do wish to go beyond time, please let me know at the start of your speaking. And we welcome Councillor Bolton to the chamber as well. So we're now moving to the first item, which is DD 2917 on Palmer Street, and Councillor Farnley will fix the mic and then leave the room. We'll just wait one moment. And I'll turn to the officer to present the report.
Thank you. So the first item is 31 Palmer Street in Fawkner, and the proposal is for the development of the land, the construction of 4 dwellings, being 3 double-storey and 1 single-storey dwelling. The site's located at the Bend, of the street and is located in a neighbourhood residential zone. Going through some photos, the photo up on the screen is the subject site. It's got an existing single-storey brick dwelling and a driveway on the western side. The surrounding area is characterised by single-storey detached dwellings with backyards, large front setbacks, and typically hipped roofs. Moving on to the proposal. So it's four dwellings accessed off a central driveway that is providing car access to all the dwellings. We have 3 double stories at the front and 1 single-storey dwelling at the rear. The private open spaces are located along that side of the site and have access to the main living areas. They're all 2-bedroom dwellings with the exception of Unit 3, which is a 3-bedroom dwelling. On the upper floor, we got the proposals for bedrooms for the front unit. The living area is located at the first floor of Unit 2, typically known as a reverse living arrangement with the bedrooms on the ground floor. And Unit 3 has 3 bedrooms on the upper level. That's what the proposal will look like from the street, showing the streetscape elevation on the top and the side elevation, the east elevation shown at the bottom. And the elevation on the west is shown on the top and the rear single-storey dwelling shown at the bottom there. So the application was advertised and we received 2 objections to the proposal. The objector is there located to the south of the site and the other objector is located off the map. The key concerns were raised in relation to a driveway access on the bend and traffic safety, the traffic movements in and out of the site and overlooking. The objector located there was concerned about overlooking. Just in terms of shadow impacts, the proposal complies with the planning scheme in relation to acceptable overshadowing impacts. The summary of the report is that the proposal has a good compliance with the Clause 55 standards, and that will be further enhanced with the recommendation provided in the report, which is circled there, which shows Unit 2, which currently is a reverse living arrangement, being flipped so that the living area is at the ground floor and the bedrooms are on the upper level, and an increased open space area to provide more landscaping in that location. So the applicant has put those sketch plans on the screen and has agreed to those, and the recommendation in the report is to condition it so that it meets what we see up on the screen. So the Group Manager of City Development is recommending approval of the development.
Thank you very much, Officer. I'd like now to ask if there are any objectors who wish to come forward. No objectors for this item. Is a representative of the applicant here tonight? Please come forward. Would you wish to speak to the application?
Yeah.
Yes, please come forward to the lectern.
Thank you. I'm the applicant. My name is Malcolm Samaratunga. So I'm just, first thing I thank for the committee, give me opportunity to represent myself and respond to this objection. We got 2 objections. One, the councillor said, one for the overlooking, another one for the overdevelopment. Overlooking, actually we think we address all the issues in terms of the 1.8 fencing downflow and all this clean upper flow. But again, if there's any concern about this overlooking screening issue with the council, we're happy to comply with this council recommendation, screening all upper flow habitable roof windows. The second thing coming for the overdevelopment of this site, the overdevelopment in my feelings, in terms of which part, which terms the overdevelopment happened. It's according to all the development is according to the applicable zone, like a neighborhood zone. It's allowed the 4 dwellings, pretty much. So we propose the 4 dwelling, and again, it's an 8 meter maximum height. We provide 7.64 meter maximum height, 2-story dwellings, but rare one is a single story. And other one is, it's mentioned about that neighborhood zone gardening, minimum garden space. So the proposal set back every boundaries except for the one small north boundary, 4 meters on the boundary. Apart from that one, everything is set back fairly, keep distant. So it's allowed to do all the planting. So we proposal provide the 7 canopy trees within this development, even the fairly setback from the street. It's a 7.5 meter setback from the street. So, and 26%, close to 27% permeable space. That normally the 20% is the standard. The second one is that they're talking about the neighborhood character, but this one is the area of this property is commercial property, commercial building actually, and this is within the commercial building and the neighborhood building. And again, it's close to very Sydney Road, close to amenities, where number 37 is a multiple subdivision. So our proposal is a single story in the rear. So I think in our perspective, this is a character, is comply with the character policy. And this, in terms of this location, in terms of the size, this is 850, close to 850 square meter block. This is large enough to cater the 4 dwellings. And again, this proposal is comply with the full clause 55 standard. So only the council a bit concerned about the overlooking, except for that one, is comply with all standard come to clause 55. So this all reason I'm saying the proposal is not an overdevelopment in the site. And another one they're concerned about the traffic. Yes, that we provide the enough space for the development, and again enough moving space, forward direction, exit. So it's a safe site, it's not that in the corner or anything. And we provide the pedestrian display, visible display. So this is not unsafe or anything to regard to the traffic. And again, council traffic department clearly state this is not negatively impact to the traffic in the Palmer Street. So in all about these things, I think this is comply with all the standard council and it's not an over development on the site.
Thank you. I'm just conscious of the time, so if you could start summarising, that'd be concluding.
That's
that
the
would be
final
great.
is that's the one I come to final. So we are asking the council planning committee to support this one because it's the whole thing is compliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
Thanks.
your presentation. Before you sit down, I might ask councillors if they have any questions of the applicant at this stage. Any questions of clarification or anything? No?
I just have a
Yep,
quick
Councillor
question.
Abood.
Hello, thank you for coming in. I was wondering if you have any idea, if you can estimate, I'm thinking about all of the bedrooms upstairs, whether the bedrooms will each have a reverse cycle air conditioner.
Yes, please. Yeah.
You think they will?
Yeah.
And so you think perhaps there will be 7 reverse cycle air conditioners on the site to cater for the 7 bedrooms?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Another?
Yes, Councillor Riley.
My question is similar. Thank you for coming in. I'm just curious about there is some northern aspect to this design, but did you consider solar passive in the design issues when you oriented the properties?
Yes, yeah. All the backyard, all the private open space face into the north. Even all the living space face into the north. You can see that the north facing very much. All 4 dwellings, and in terms of the north aspect, I think it's not only one section. So all property, all development is facing the north.
Thank you very much. Any further questions of the applicant? No? That's fine. Thank you very much. You may
Thanks.
be seated.
Thank you very much.
Councillors, is there a motion around this proposal? Yes, Councillor Kavanagh.
I'd like to move the officer recommendation on pages 3, 4, 5 and 6. And if I have a seconder, I'll speak to it.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. Is there a seconder to this application? Councillor Riley? Councillor Kavanagh.
Well, thank you very much. Look, it's interesting. Although there are only 2 objectors and we haven't had anyone come tonight, that's not what's forefront of my support of this application. Because sometimes you may have limited objectors, but you need to look at the actual application itself. And now that the Unit 2 has gone from being a reverse living to a conventional living, that was the only major concern that I had. If we line it up with Rest Code, it does seem to fulfil almost every criteria of Rest Code, as was mentioned by the applicant. Just making the point, just again, it's not that there's limited objectors. It's still possible to have a refusal, even if there are no objectors. But what it is the context of what the application is, and it must be judged on its own merits. And I believe when you do that, I believe this deserves support.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. Councillor Riley, do you wish to add anything further? Okay. Are there any councillors who wish to speak against Councillor Aboud?
Against?
Yes,
So-
or do you a general comment if it's not against?
Yeah, I just have a general comment about this development. I do think that we do need to see a level of development in Moreland, because it's very important to me that we don't keep building into what I call the food bowl, which is out in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. But I worry about how we're going to look back on this era of architecture, and I'm very concerned about the lack of solar panels, and I also think that it would be great if we could design our buildings so that we don't need to use 7 air conditioners, which then have a huge electricity cost for the people living in the apartments. So although I can see that you've ticked the res code, I see you have good access to the freeway if someone's driving to work, or wherever, that's great. It's not too far from public transport, and I hope that we'll endeavour to improve the bus service in Fawkner at that north end so that people can get closer to the train. And so I can't vote against this development because I have no grounds to do so. But I think it will be a really great thing when we start to see some better alternatives to 7 air conditioners on one block of land. And so I appreciate you coming along to present, and they're my feelings.
Thank you, Councillor Aboud. Are there any councillors who wish to speak to this? Any further councillors who wish to speak to this? No? In that case, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. I'll now turn to the officer to outline the next.
I'll just take you through a few photographs. So the photos on the screen are the subject site. The site is made up of 2 properties. Number 30 currently contains a single dwelling. Number 32 is currently vacant with the exception of an outbuilding. These are the properties immediately to the east of the site at number 34 and 36, both single dwellings. And then immediately, that was to the west, and this is immediately to the east, so you can see the subject site over here. And then some photos of the development directly opposite the site. The site is located in the general residential zone and is affected by the development contribution plan overlay. In terms of what's being proposed, the application is for 4 double-storey and 2 single-storey dwellings. So you'll see up on the screen, this is the ground floor plan showing the front 2 dwellings having their own separate vehicle access way, and there's a central driveway which provides vehicle access to the rear 4 dwellings. The next slide shows the location of the upper levels of the front 4 dwellings. Just take you through some elevations. So that's a proposed streetscape elevation showing the development in the context of the adjoining dwellings. Then the other elevation, so the top elevation there again is a streetscape elevation, and then the next 2 are the side elevations of the development, and then the bottom one is the rear elevation of the single-storey dwellings. We received 2 objections to this application. They're marked with the black X on the map up on the screen, and there's a summary of the main issues raised in the objections up on the screen. So the appearance of the proposal, along with concerns around car parking and traffic, excess rubbish on rubbish collection days, and increased pressure on stormwater infrastructure. So The officer recommendation is that the application be supported subject to conditions, and those conditions commence at page 24 of tonight's agenda. The key conditions relate to some minor changes to improve some minor non-compliances with Res Code, as well as complying with Council's ESD policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like now to ask, are there any objectors who wish to speak to this item? Yes, please come forward.
I'm Joe Perry. As well as speaking in support of my objection to the proposed development of the 6 units at number 30 and 32 Margaret Street, I'm also doing so on behalf of Mr and Mrs D'Angelo at number 21, and also Mr Dominic Garofalo at number 19. He didn't put an objection in. He wasn't able to join us here this evening. As I've been asked to include their concerns in my address this evening, just wondering if I could have an extra minute or two
Certainly.
to do so. Firstly, I can't begin to tell you the depth of concern residents have, not only in Margaret Street, but also throughout the suburb of Fawkner, at this scourge of runaway overdevelopment and its impact on our street and our suburb. Being amongst the suburb's long-term residents, we understand and we can relate to the need for affordable housing. It's what brought us to Fawkner in the first place, many, many years ago. We understand and appreciate that everyone has to play their part. This requires streets with capacity being applied for additional housing. Our issue, however, is overdevelopment and the complete lack of consideration for the future long-term social, environmental and community needs of the residents. We want new residents to come into a community and a suburb with a future, not streets choked with cars, not ugly, upright, crammed together shoe boxes or unsightly dormitories, with no allowance for people-to-people engagement, cultural expression, health and so on. Greenfield suburbs receive every consideration from their councils with respect to their public realm needs, but established suburbs such as Fawkner have theirs completely ignored. With a massive windfall in stamp duty, rates, charges and taxes that go to council and government, there's been no investment and improvement to the public realm of Fawkner. Nothing for urban renewal, new parklands, additional retail, social and community spaces to address the livability needs of the suburb's increased population. Not one extra tree, not one extra inch of parkland, no additional shops, and this list goes on. In just a few short years, in Margaret Street, we've had 3 dual occupation constructions, 3 dwellings at number 20, and now a further 6 proposed for 30 and 32 Margaret Street, resulting in a nearly 30% increase in the number of dwellings in a small suburban street. Margaret Street is already being impacted by the increased population in Fawkner, with more and more cars using it as a rat run to avoid the lights at Jutes and Sydney roads. A further hazard is that many of these motorists speed down Margaret Street, endangering the residents, especially the kids and the elderly. To make matters worse, we're dealing with the impact of increased on-street parking that requires our residents to put their rubbish bins in the gutter or their driveways to ensure they're collected by council. These issues are not unique to Margaret Street, Fawkner. They've been presented to council over and over again in the past by fellow moorland ratepayers. So I'm absolutely bewildered by the inaction of council. Over 2 decades of its history, Moreland Council has been a leader on issues of social justice, the well-being of its ratepayers, environment and culture, Indigenous people, and the appreciation of cultural diversity. It's acted courageously, taking on and challenging Spring Street over the east-west freeway. But here we are today, facing the single greatest issue that has ratepayers from Brunswick to Fawkner angry at the impact of rampant, unmanaged and unregulated development. And our council, that's needed more than ever to provide courageous leadership and guidance, is sadly silent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perry. Are there any further objectors that wish to speak to this item? In that case, is there a representative of the applicant who wishes to speak? Please come forward, sir.
Thank you, Chair, councillors and officers. My name's Andrew Gray. I'm a town planning consultant. I've been asked to speak on behalf of the applicant tonight. We say that this site is a very good candidate for medium density housing for a number of reasons. One, it's a very large site. It's a combined site of two lots that have been combined to provide an area of almost 1,150 square metres. It's very close to Sydney Road, which is obviously a main arterial through the municipality, and a very short walk from Gowrie Station, which is very important. The other thing, it has very good orientation, has a northerly aspect, so all open space areas have either the northerly, east or west aspect, and good passive solar access. We say that this proposal will provide affordable housing for people looking to get into the housing market. It allows for more population and people to move into the area. We think that's a good thing. We say it's in a general residential zone rather than a neighbourhood residential zone, and the general residential zone does encourage medium density housing, respects character. And we say this proposal does respect character, and we say that for a number of reasons. It does provide for significant landscaping on site. The front setback and the width of the frontage at 30 metres provides for good landscaping opportunities in the front setback. The scale of 2 storeys is appropriate, and it also steps down to a single storey scale at the rear in accordance with council's policies. We say the building form reflects the existing character of the area. The proposal has a very high level of compliance with Res Code, and there's only minor matters noted in the officer's report that require to be addressed. In terms of car parking, it provides full compliance with car parking. Council's traffic engineers are satisfied with the car parking provision, and also in terms of the traffic volumes that are generated from the site. Access is safe, and we say the 30-metre frontage to the property allows the 3 crossovers and for things like bins and other things to be adequately managed. I would point out to the councillors that there was only 2 objections received to this application. I note comments before about the number of objections is not important, but I reject the submissions made by Mr Perry that all of Margaret Street is against this proposal, because there's only 2 objections and no immediately adjoining residents have objected. And I note that the resident of number 19 was not an objector, although it was noted he was acting on his behalf tonight. I note some of the submissions you heard from Mr Perry, there were submissions made to you that are really a view of that particular gentleman about what's happening in the area. And that's fine to have his opinion, but the planning scheme allows this development. The planning scheme sets out the requirements that applicants need to meet, and where applicants meet those requirements and exceed those requirements in this particular case, we say that the proposal should be supported. We say this is an appropriate development, and we say that the officer's recommendation should be adopted by council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Gray. Are there any questions of the applicant before he sits down?
Thanks, Andrew, for your presentation, and thanks, Mr Perry, for your objection. I'm just wondering the same questions. Is there any water being caught on the site in water tanks?
There's rainwater tanks in the rear open spaces provided.
Yeah, and do you know what the idea of that water is to be used for? Just the gardens, perhaps?
Generally for the gardens, yes.
Yep. Any solar panels on the development?
There's no solar panels, but I'm instructed by my client, and it's also part of the officer recommendation, that he would be happy to accept a condition about solar panels. It's generally, it's a general condition asking for further ESD initiatives, but my client has advised me earlier that he'd be prepared to have solar panels included on
On the development, yeah.
Yes.
And any solar hot water on the development?
Well, that could be, if the solar panels are included, there could be a solar hot water service available in that way. So that's
Fantastic.
certainly
And the last question, by my calculations, between 12 and 14 split system air conditioners on the development. Do you happen to know if can you confirm that for me?
Look, I think, yes, again, I think there would be split systems provided. I think that's particularly in the upper level bedrooms and in the living area, certainly. But look, my instructions are that there will be split systems provided.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Abood, and Councillor Martin has some questions as well.
Yeah, following on, very similar to what Councillor Abood was saying, I just happen to have noticed that some of the clauses for environmentally sustainable development, given that the NABERS rating, energy rating, minimum of 6.5 star, I noticed this development doesn't meet that. Are you prepared to amend the development to meet that minimum 6.5 star rating?
In terms of the officer's recommendation, which is to increase the level of provision, look, I'll have to get instructions on that, Councillor. I mean, if you can let me speak to my client for a moment, I can respond to that. I can't really provide that advice on the run if you're happy for me to do that.
Certainly, and we're going to confer about the wording of the condition as well.
Yes,
So yes,
yes,
please
thank you.
do that.
Point of order, Chair. Have we adjourned or?
No, we were just waiting for the applicant to confirm with the client, and we're just looking at some wording for the motion as well, for some of the proposed motions. And I'm going to now ask the applicant to provide a response.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have. I have conferred, and that is acceptable to my client.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any further questions of the applicant from councillors? Thank you very much. You may be seated.
Thank you very much.
Are there any further questions of councillors to officers? I'll ask then for, is there a motion on the table? Councillor Farnley.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move that a refusal to grant a planning permit be issued for the construction of 6 dwellings at 3032 Margaret Street, Fawkner. I have a seconder.
Can you speak to it? Certainly. So Councillor Bolton has seconded it.
Thank you, councillors.
Councillor Farnley, might I just ask you to quickly summarise the grounds of refusal
Sure.
for the benefit of the gallery who wouldn't have seen the alternative, and then maybe speak to the why you've proposed the alternative.
Okay, so the reason that I am refusing, along with Councillor Bolton's support, this particular development is that it fails to comply with neighbourhood character, it fails to comply with car and bike parking and vehicle access, it fails to comply with neighbourhood character objectives and landscaping objectives, specifically around the fact that there is not sufficient landscaping and tree planting opportunities at the ground level. If you look at the Unit 1 and Unit 6, it's actually adjoining the neighbours, so there's no landscaping opportunities on the side. There are 3 entry points to this property, so any guest would have to park potentially at Mr Perry's house across the road because there's not enough space at the front. It doesn't meet ESD standards. It also doesn't meet some of the open space and lighting objectives, and it fails to really give me any confidence that vehicles will be able to exit the site in a forward manner, which means it puts pedestrian access walking across the front at risk when vehicles are reversing about 10 metres back onto the street.
Thank you very much, Councillor Farnley. Councillor Bolton, do you wish to add anything?
So do I speak to it now?
Oh, so I thought you'd...
I'm summarising it for you.
Okay, please speak to it.
And now I'll speak to it. All So, councillors, residents of Moreland are not in favour of this type of development in the area. I mean, this is a stake in the ground moment for us. The reason why every councillor agreed that we should all be on the urban planning committee is that the number 1, 2 or 3 issue is the overdevelopment that's going on in our neighbourhood areas of Moreland. So the question really is what are we going to do about it? For me, this really sets the benchmark for development in Fawkner. We know that really Fawkner was built by the first generation of settlers in the 50s and 60s. My grandma, seems like Joe Perry's parents, they moved into Fawkner, they built their family home there, and as time goes by, they're starting to pass away. And what's going to happen to all the homes in Fawkner moving forward? This really is a benchmark moment for me. Do those properties now get subdivided to 3 or 4, and does the suburb of Fawkner become parts of Oak Park and Glenroy, where you can't actually drive home and find a park on the road, or your neighbours can't come comfortably and visit you? It's difficult. It's not the suburb that people want to move into. Now, there's a couple of points here. Firstly, this entire site is 1,147 square metres. Now, if you divide that by 6, Councillor Martin, that's 191 square metres per unit. That's less than 250 square metres that I think is a reasonable amount that you and I have discussed in the past as to what should be acceptable for units north of Bell Street. 191 square metres per unit, less than 250 square metres per unit. It doesn't meet ESD standards. I have no confidence that the cars going into the back 2 garages are going to honestly do a 3 or 4 or 5 point turn and get out of that driveway in a safe manner. They will be reversing, which then introduces risks to pedestrians walking past on Margaret Street. I've no confidence that spare car park that's used is supposed to be a shared car park, which is right on the window of the, I believe it's a 2nd unit, is going to actually be used as a shared car park. It seems like it's almost designated for that 2nd unit, which then means guests would realistically be parking on the street. You look at the setbacks on the sides, it's actually adjoining the land next door. It's adjoining the land next door. Now, if we're talking about widening the garages to make sure that it's a safe way so cars can do a point turn, well, where in the back units are you going to widen it any further? Is it a small adjustment? If it's a small adjustment, it already looks like it's impossible to do a 3-point turn. There's a lot of concerns with this particular development. It's too big. I think people in Fawkner are comfortable with the fact that you keep the home, you subdivide, you build something in the back. That's an appropriate response to development. This particular one is an overdevelopment.
Thank you, Councillor Farnley. Councillor Bolton, do you wish to add anything?
I'd just speak very briefly. Probably on the side of this scale, I'd be happy to see the unit development was maybe a couple of units less than what's being fitted onto this block. Obviously, you do need to have a mix of different kinds of housing in an area. Standalone houses, small and some smaller units. But I guess my main reasons for opposing this and supporting the alternative resolution of refusal is one, on neighbourhood character grounds, one on secondly on size of apartments, not necessarily in this order, and also I do have concerns about vehicles having to reverse out such a long distance to get out of the site, and feeling that the development takes up too much of the site, and so that there is inadequate space, open space on the site.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there a councillor who wishes to speak against this resolution? Councillor Kavanagh.
I want to speak against the resolution, and I foreshadow that if this is unsuccessful, I'll be moving the officer recommendation. The reason I'm speaking against the resolution is on a number of points. Number one, this is not in the neighbourhood residential zone. All right, this is not neighbourhood residential. This is general residential zone. When we went to the minister asking for 250 square metres for certain properties, that was for neighbourhood residential zone. of which around 65% of Moreland is in that zone. This is in the general zone. It's in a general zone because it's 96 metres east of Sydney Road. It's well serviced by public transport, very close to Gowrie Station. The other thing we've got to remember with this application is that it is a double block. So we're looking at, if we were to think of each of them as separate, we're looking at 2 double-storey and 1 single-storey in the backyard. I think that's acceptable. I would almost think it's acceptable in neighbourhood zone, but I certainly think it's acceptable in general residential zone. And that's my reasons that I'll be voting against the refusal, and if it's unsuccessful, I'll be looking for approval.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kavanagh. Are there any councillors that wish to speak further to this item? Councillor Riley.
Thank you. Yes, I stand to speak against the proposal. Many of the issues that have been raised by this proposal have been addressed by officers in the report and in the foreshadowed motion that Councillor Kavanagh has mentioned. Particularly because this is a general residential zone, many of those concerns I don't have to take issue with. I mean, my personal belief would be to have far fewer cars on this site. However, I do believe the officers have explained themselves in terms of the turning circles. There are lines drawn on here. Whether people wish to believe the work that council officers have done or not is another issue, but I tend to trust that calculation and that work. So for this reason, I'll be supporting the motion, the foreshadowed motion.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Any further comment from councillors on Councillor Farnley's motion? No? In that case, I'll put that to the vote.
Close the debate?
Yes, got right to refute.
Would like to close debate?
Yeah, I just, with respect to Councillor Kavanagh, we just had a proposal put forward regarding 4 units on 1 block, and that was in a neighbourhood residential zone and was still voted to provide a permit. So I'm not sure, even if this was in neighbourhood residential zone, if you would vote differently. So I just wanted to make that point, given that, you know, you said it's because it's in the general residential zone, but we had one that was 4 units on a neighbourhood residential zone and you still gave the permit. So would you have voted differently if it was in that neighbourhood residential? Is questionable. I hope council will join me in. I think we've got here in that an objector in Joe Perry tonight, a very experienced campaigner, works in public relations. What we did with 14 Irvine Crescent in Brunswick is we backed the residents to go to VCAT and defend their case. We thought that was an overdevelopment for that particular site. We backed the even though the council officers said it's fine, we should grant the permit, we backed the residents in, and they've now gone to VCAT and hopefully they're going to present their case. We have a very experienced campaigner, Mr. Perry here, that's objecting to this. He works in public relations. He's already starting a Fawkner Residents action group. I believe if we can back him in to VCAT, he will run a case very successfully.
Thank you, Councillor Farnley. Since it was the close of the debate, I'm now going to put Councillor Farnley's motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that lost. Councillor Kavanagh?
Yeah, I move the officer recommendation on pages. Sorry, I've just lost my page. Here we go. Page 24. And if I have a seconder, I'll speak to it.
Is there a seconder to Councillor Kavanagh's motion? Do you wish to amend it? You won't be able to.
No. So it's
Okay, Councillor Martin is seconding it. Councillor Kavanagh, do you wish to speak to it?
Just to say that I do think that, as I mentioned before about the zoning, and therefore I'm supportive of it. Regarding the other matter, yes, it didn't hit the 250 square metres, but it was about 30 square metres larger in each of the areas was about 30 square metres larger. It almost went to about 220 square or 215 square metres. But anyway, this goes to 191. 191 would be, in my view, pushing the envelope in a neighbourhood residential zone, but in a general residential zone, I think it's acceptable. We've been through with this zoning is relatively new. About 3 or 4 years ago, council went out with this zoning. We did a lot of work at that point, going through all the mapping, etc., as to which areas we did want. We managed to protect a lot of the area of Fawkner and those other areas which have had overdevelopment. I accept what Councillor Farley says there, particularly in Oak Park and Glenroy, though many of those applications that were successful under the previous zoning wouldn't have been acceptable under this zoning, since we've had the neighbourhood residential zones in place.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kavanagh. Councillor Martin, do you wish to speak to this item? No. councillors who wish to speak to this item? Councillor Aboud?
Okay, so I feel kind of a bit uncomfortable about voting against Councillor O'Farnley's amendment, but what I'm grappling with is what I mentioned before, which is development on a whole. We have a massively growing population. We're experiencing a lot of the older parts of the community. There is, in Moreland, we have a baby boom, and we also have a growing number of elderly citizens in the municipality. So what we need to do is we need to cater to both of those voices, okay? So we need to acknowledge that, sure, there might have been only 2 objections because maybe the people who wanted to object didn't have the means to object. They don't sit in front of computers like some of the rest of us do. They don't have phones with internet connections and email and everything in their hands. And I want to acknowledge that. But I think it's also very important, and especially because of my own personal beliefs, that we embrace a level of development in parts of the city. So I know that some of the councillors at this table think all of that development should be happening in the south end of the city, and I don't agree with that. I think that if you're within 100 metres of a train station, then there's an opportunity for you to rent a place, commute to the city, and you don't even need to own a car, which is what I'm aiming for, okay? So for me, this development, and I'm sorry to have to say this to you, and I feel kind of uncomfortable about voting against the refusal, but I think that this kind of development is closer to the kind of development we need to embrace than some of the stuff we have to say no to. I think I really would like to say to the developers and the owners of the property that you've got an opportunity to really shine. You've got an opportunity to embrace some new technologies, to make life for the people who are going to be renting this property from you or maybe buying it from you, to live a sustainable life with lowered electricity bills, with great technology, so that they're not living in a little fibro box on top of a brick box where they can hardly go upstairs to their bedrooms if it's 42 degrees. And I hope that you can embrace and at least have a look at some of this stuff, and there are experts around in our community that can advise you that you might actually recoup some of your money in your investment by selling stuff with this high environmental design standard. So although I'm really sorry to Mr. Perry, because you live in this area where development is inevitable, I think, especially when you're a couple of minutes walk from the train station, maybe 10 minutes, I don't feel like I can say no to this development.
Thank you, Councillor Aboud. Are there any further speakers to this item? Councillor Riley?
Yes, I just wanted to reassure people who haven't seen or read the detail on this that the issues are that are covered in this proposal regarding the landscaping, the trees and so on, and the 6.5 star rating has already been addressed, which was discussed with the proponent earlier. Those issues have been already addressed by officers. So, and I would just like to concur with Councillor Aboud's comments that we just don't need to have standard applications. We're actually looking for applications that rise above that and actually provide much better housing for the future, which are going to meet our needs, not only in the current climate conditions that we're dealing with, but how that's going to prevail in the future. So it's really important that we actually do have housing that can actually withstand the different climate that we're about to deal with and the types of severe storms that we're also dealing with. So I believe a lot of those issues have been addressed in the proposal, and I'm supporting that.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Are there any further comments? I might say a few words. I'll just want to speak really briefly. I too will support Councillor Kavanagh's motion. This is another tricky one, and particularly in an area that's starting to see a bit more development, and I totally heed that it's concerning, and I want to thank Mr. Perry for your very eloquent presentation, and it's really important that we know the issues and how people are experiencing that change. One of the tricky things in this area is that it is zone general residential and not neighbourhood residential zones. This was a package that we essentially inherited from the state government, who said you've got to rezone your complete municipality into these 3 new zones. Perhaps if we got to design the residential zones, we would have done it very, very differently. But at that time, we had to put a package up, and for ministerial approval, or everything would have been general residential zone. So we had to say some parts neighbourhood residential, but we also had to then say some was residential growth and some general residential. And if we hadn't put any in general residential, the whole package would have come down and we would have got just general residential across every area, even in the areas that are the most locked down, neighbourhood character areas. So granted, this has been an area that hasn't seen a lot of development, but the zoning does mean that it is going to see a little bit more development. And one of the things that we're really mindful of, as my fellow councillors have spoken about, is really trying to get a better quality outcome. It's really tricky with the planning laws that we have at the moment. They're often not strong enough for us to get good development outcomes. But this one has been assessed by our officers. There's been a number of conditions that are imposed on it to get a better development outcome. Granted, though, it doesn't satisfy the concerns you've raised, and it's something we're going to have to think very seriously about as we see more applications coming up in the northern parts of the municipality. But the reason I'm supporting is because it is in general residential zone, and theoretically they could actually get more onto this site than they're proposing. And sometimes we have to look at it from that perspective as well. So I just want to thank you for your presentation and for representing the interests of your community. And we look forward to working with you and making sure that we get better development outcomes. If there's no further speakers, I'll put Councillor Kavanagh's motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. I'll now turn to the officer to outline the next steps.
The committee has resolved to approve the application subject to the conditions set out in tonight's agenda. A copy of the decision will be sent to the applicant and objectors. The objectors will have 21 days in which to lodge an appeal with VCAT, and the applicant will have 60 days in which to lodge an appeal against conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all those who attended for that item. We're now moving on to our next application, which is DD 3117, 1 Davison Street, Brunswick. And I'll just give the officers a moment to reposition. Okay, I'll turn to the officer now to present the officer report on 1 Davison Street.
Thank you, councillors. The application at 1 Davison Street proposes the construction of 3 double-storey dwellings on a block of approximately 367 square metres. The site currently contains a single-storey rendered dwelling, likely constructed in the early part of the 20th century. The site has rear and side laneway access there, which you can see on the image to the right, and also on those 2 images there. Adjacent the site is number 3 Davison Street, which is a very similar type of dwelling. It does have a carport which abuts the common boundary with the subject site. Diagonally opposite the site is number 2A Davison Street, which was constructed in the late 1990s. It is a double-storey rendered brick building. The remainder of Davison Street is relatively low scale, generally one-storey dwellings, generally of the Victorian or Edwardian era. Front setbacks vary between 4 and 5 metres, generally as normal. Showing another couple of images there of the street. The proposal is for 3 dwellings, each with 2 bedrooms and 1 car space, access from the side laneway, maximum height of just under 7 metres, the ground level courtyards, vehicle access from the side laneway with predominantly brick used as materials. The ground floor there shows some open plan living areas at ground floor, car space and a courtyard along the northern boundary. First floor is 2 bedrooms, a couple of bathrooms and a lounge area. North and south elevations, the side view, the bottom image there showing what would abut the neighbour, while the top image is what would abut the laneway. East elevation, which is Davison Street, showing the approximate location of the development within the immediate surrounds. The application was advertised and 1 objection was received from the property directly to the north. The key issues raised in those objections are listed at the bottom of the screen there, generally around non-compliances with Res Code, as well as some building matters as well. It is recommended that the application be refused on the grounds set out on the slide there. Council officers acknowledge that this development does display quite high environmentally sustainable design initiatives. However, we are recommending refusal based on those grounds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Officer. Is there an objector who wishes to speak to this item first? Yes, please come forward.
Good evening and pleased to meet. My name is John Karapuris. I live at number 3 Davison Street in Brunswick. I have objected to the proposal of the 3 dwellings on the next door site. One of them is, which are all written down, insufficient street setbacks. So the houses or the dwellings are proposed to be too far forward from the whole street. So on average, like I said, it's about 4 to 5 metres. This is going to go forward than that, about 2 metres, or 2 metres plus more forward than what they should be. The second that I put down was overlooking. I've got 3 balconies facing our side. So even though they're 1.7 high, they've got screens and all that, you can still look over. We've got laser light, which doesn't hide anything, so you can still see into our backyard. The other thing I put down was traffic and parking. When we had the meeting a couple of weeks ago, or about a month ago, the councillors came down and it was proven that we had no parking in our street. So there was only 1 car park which was available when I got there at 4 o'clock. And this is what happens every day. So we struggle to find car park in your own house, in the front of your street, where even last week I had to park on Hope Street, which is further down than what we are. The other thing I put down was loss of daylight. So I'd taken a photo which I submitted in my objection at 12 o'clock on a Saturday on a very sunny day. If the dwellings do go ahead, light transmission to that window, it's going to be hard, or even a third of what it is. So it's going to be dark. I'm not saying that it's going to be a shadow, it's just going to be not enough light transmission going into the rooms. The other thing was site coverage, which was too far, I think, to the boundary of our house. So the higher it is, the more further out it's supposed to go. And the other thing I had put down was, if they do start, what are the guarantees about my property not having any damage? That was it.
That's the end of
So nice and quick.
Thank you very much, and we'll attempt to address some of the questions that you've raised in your objection through the debate as well. Thank you very much. Are there any further objectors who wish to speak? There's only one objector to this one. Is there a representative of the applicant who wishes to speak? Please come forward. You have a presentation?
Can I go to the mouse, Ashley? Is that cool?
Can, yeah.
Thanks, man. Is that going to full screen? There we go. Okay, perfect. Thanks, John, and thanks, Ashley, and Chair and councillors. I thought this evening we'd respond specifically to the 6 areas of Section 55 that had been specifically raised by council officers in their report. We thought that would be the best way to understand the level of thought that's gone into our proposal and the level of detailed thinking that sometimes ResCode doesn't necessarily allow for a clear communication of. So to begin with, and probably uniquely, definitely for tonight, but more broadly, the majority of applications that come before you, the 3 townhouses that we propose to build at 1 Davison Street, we propose to be occupied by each of the 3 couples, myself being one, myself and Katya, Peter and Sarah, and Chris and Miranda. So the essence of this development is non-speculative, and it is very much geared towards building homes for I guess a younger generation to live within what is increasingly a kind of and a suburb lacking in affordability. So just jumping in, this is our response, I guess, to the issues raised. So the first issue raised was the street setback. Council officers referring to ResCode and requesting that setback be 5.4 metres or equal to our neighbour to the north. The reasoning behind our proposed front setback, we've essentially drawn a line between the corner of our neighbour's building to the north and the corner of the building that's built hard up against both its northern and eastern boundary. We've taken the intersection of that point and the setback equals 2.9 metres. Now, if we look more broadly along Davison Street, we've highlighted 10 properties within a stone's throw of our property that have a front setback less than 2.9 metres. The property at 8 Davison Street there has a front setback of 1.65 metres. And then the two properties to our south obviously built zero plot line, and the property at 2A Davison Street is built zero plot line over 2 levels. On that basis, we contend that, you know, despite the specifics of Res Code, that pretty clearly the existing neighbourhood context calls for support for a front setback in the order of what is proposed. It's worthy of noting. The second issue raised by council officers in their report referred to site coverage. What we'd like to highlight, it was raised in the officers' report that we're proposing a 67% site coverage. Now, the building area that we're proposing is 212.5 square metres. Now, of the 365 square metre site, that represents 58% site coverage. That's under the required 60% site coverage of the Res Code standard. The pedestrian path that you see highlighted in pink is 31.7 square metres. That represents 9%. So the 58 plus the 9 get us up to our 67. I'd just like to raise that as a point. I'd like to then move on to the existing condition. The existing landscape area on site is 35 square metres or 10% of the site area. There's a single lemon tree in the backyard and all of the other uncovered spaces on site are concreted. Our proposal on the right proposes 120 square metres of landscaped area or 33% of the site area. Now that's important because recently changes to the Victorian planning scheme have particular and within the neighbourhood residential zone have stated that sites under 400 square metres do not have a minimum garden area requirement. Our proposal provides 33% of garden area. Under the changes to the new planning scheme, lots between 501 to 650 square metres are required to provide 30% garden area requirement. Lots over 600 square metres, 650 square metres are required to provide 35%, and yet here we are on a 365 square metre block of land in urban southern Brunswick, providing 33% garden area. I think that's particularly noteworthy, and it really does speak to one of the key reasons why we bought this site, and that is that we have the laneway interface to our south and to the west, which allows us to pull our building form back against that laneway and have the majority of our circulation running along that existing infrastructure in order to then increase the garden area of our site. The next issue that was raised is the issue of private open space.
I'm just conscious of time, so if you can keep
yeah,
moving
sorry,
through.
there's two more that I can get through quickly. The private open space objective. So council officers have raised issue with our private open space allocation being under 40 square metres. Townhouse 1 provides 30.4, Townhouse 2 31.3 and Townhouse 3 31.4. Importantly, our proposal seeks to make communal use of our front yard. Our front yard size is 28 square metres. Why are we doing that? We're doing that because we see the front yard as being a critical opportunity to bring each of the occupants of the 3 townhouses together to connect with each other, but also to connect more broadly with the local community. And we see that as being a really innovative measure for this kind of development in Brunswick. Now, if we take that 28 square metres and we divide it by 3, it equals 9.6. Now, if I add that area to the private open space of each of the townhouses, it gets us up to our 40. Now, I'd like to make that point because as we increase density within our neighbourhoods, we need to use land more efficiently. We need to be smarter with our land. We need to think how we can use our land to strengthen the bonds of community. And we think we've got something with this proposal that can really be encouraged to achieve that. Again, not necessarily supported by the specifics of Res Code. The second last issue is that of solar access to open space that is provided within our development. Council officers have referred to the building height of our building to the north being 4.1 metres. We've double-checked that since the council officers' report was issued, and we've double-checked the site survey that was provided to officers, and we confirmed that the height of that building is actually 3.59 metres, not 4.1 metres. Now that's close to a metre error, and in the councillor's report they referred to scaling from drawings. There was no need to scale. RLs were provided, and that information was easily ascertainable. Now, based on council officer logic, we would have to move our northern building line back 1.2 metres to meet Res Code. Based on our review of the facts, we would need to bring the northern building line of our building back only 700 millimetres to meet the Res Code standard. Our objective in designing our building has been to build the most environmentally friendly building we can build. We're aiming for a 7.5 star outcome. One of the key components of aiming for building efficiency is to minimise the amount of solar heat gain and heat loss. One of the key areas through which that occurs is through glazing. To a degree, our proposal is at odds with increasing solar access into the northern backyard areas. It limits our ability to achieve the efficiencies that we're trying to achieve. That being said, the next issue that was raised is storage. One more.
Yep, sure.
The storage, it's calculated that we're providing 3.2 cubic metres of storage per townhouse. We put forward that our floor-to-ceiling height within the garage is 3 metres, well in excess of standard ceiling heights. If we were to take the 300 millimetre zone for the entire area of each of the garage zones, which is 25 square metres, and times that by 300 millimetres, that's 7.5 cubic metres. And that's a requirement that could be very easily met through a design outcome and could be conditioned as part of tonight's proceedings as something that we could easily accommodate. The final issue raised was that of design detail objective. Council officers commented that the architectural style would not integrate with the built form, scale, siting and appearance of the surrounding context, particularly when viewed from Davison Street streetscape. Compliance with this objective could not be conditioned as it is considered a key flaw with the current design. I have to respectfully disagree with that assessment. This is the existing condition. This is our proposed condition. We've put together a design application with a nationally recognised young architectural practice. This architectural practice has based themselves in Brunswick. Our company, our sustainability consultancy, has too based itself in Brunswick. We're working at a national scale on some of the leading environmentally kind of ambitious projects of varying scales, and we would contend that that we've put forward the best possible application we can, responsible in the immediate context that this site finds itself, and we've also attempted to put forward a proposal that seeks to deal with how we can start to make better use of our land resource.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that presentation. Before we sit down, I might just ask if there's any questions from councillors for the applicant. Councillor Abood.
Same questions. How are you heating your hot water? Solar hot water?
There's actually a heat pump solution. So Our aim is to be is not to use renewables in operation, so we're not providing gas, so we're 100% electric. We take all our electricity off solar panels from the roof. We use batteries to store that power, and then we use heat pump technology, which is incredibly efficient.
So that was a yes to the solar panels then, and catching water on the site?
Catch water store.
Yeah. There's 2, 4, 6 bedrooms upstairs, so 6 split system air conditioners?
No air conditioning,
no.
we don't need it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Any further questions from councillors? So we've got Councillor Riley, Martin and Kavanagh. Councillor Riley first.
Yes, there's a lot about this application that I like in terms of the ESG provisions. I'm just wondering, when did you submit the proposal? Because there's a lot of detail and a lot of numbers you've hit us with tonight, which concerns me.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering why they haven't been resolved with officers. That's my first question. My second question is, you haven't addressed the issue of the rear yard and the fact that the rear yards in this street, the neighbourhood character is mostly open backyards, and why you're proposing a double storey in the rear, at the rear of this site.
Sure. We submitted this application in November last year, in November 2016. So a 3 townhouse application now has been in process for close to 6 months.
In terms of the numbers, the question about the numbers and the alternative numbers that you've provided us with tonight, and whether they've been disputed with the officers previously. Have you tabled them with the officers previously? Or?
We had the opportunity to review a detailed planning officer assessment as of Friday evening last week. So a detailed assessment in consideration of the more detailed minutiae of some of the res code related non-compliance was not provided to us in detail until we saw the officer's report on Friday.
Online?
On the internet?
On the internet.
On the internet, we downloaded it. We were not provided with a copy of the officer's report prior to that.
Okay, thank you. And are your questions answered, Councillor Riley?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't talk to this issue because I was trying to get through a fair bit else. We contend that the neighbourhood character of this specific site context is actually green and leafy. Immediately to our south behind our proposal, construction is underway, a 3-level project is underway. Concrete footings were poured as early as last Saturday, we were told by one of our neighbours to the south, who, by the way, is supportive of our application.
Could you re-see that on the diagram, like whereabouts that application is? We've asked about this.
On Hope Street.
Councillor Tapinos?
It's on Hope Street.
Here we go. So that hole in the ground there.
Oh, sorry, the south part. Yes, apologies. All right.
So footings were dug and blinding was poured on Saturday in that hole. So that's a 3-level form immediately to our south. The other important thing to note about this site is it bookends. So we have a laneway to our south, and we have a laneway separating our block and the block to our west. If you go about 75 metres to the north along the laneway to the opposite bookend, there are 2 townhouse projects with rear 2-storey developments built in their backyard. So at the opposite bookend of our proposed location, we have another location where there are multi-storey developments built in the rear yard. And I guess that comes down to one of our other key points is that were we 1 block further north, this wouldn't be appropriate. But we're not, and we're at a bookend to a laneway with 2 laneway frontages and a street frontage, with a 3-level building being built to our south, and 2 forms to our southeast that are built hard edge, and one of those being double-storey hard edge. So we would pretty vehemently contend that this is not an example of a green leafy rear backyard condition.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, thank you.
I had 2 brief questions. The first one being the community garden at the front. How is the ownership worked out on that? Is it attached to the front property? And how do you ensure that if you sell that front property that it remains a community garden? That's my first question.
Yep.
And the second question I had was if you could just briefly touch on the coverage again, going from the 58% to the 67%. I'm sorry, I think I might have missed that one again.
If I address your second question first, so the yellow area is our built area, which is covered by roof. And this pink area is a pedestrian pathway that's been provided by us to ensure that pedestrian traffic doesn't occur on the laneway. So we can create a split between vehicle traffic and pedestrian traffic. So 58% of total site coverage equates to the yellow area, and then 9% of the total site area equates to the pink area. So you add those two up, you get 60.
So along the lines of the community garden aspect, if you were to sell that front property, somebody wanted to dig up that path at the front, how do you prevent that from sort of happening?
No. So one of the key ideas that we'll propose to Council Subdivision Officer, subject to our application being successful, is that that front yard is actually individually titled to each tenancy. Very similar to in an apartment project where you might create a separate title for a car park that is not attached to the actual title of the apartment. Now, the reason we're doing that is to ensure that ownership stays with each of the individual titles. There's also other reasons why we're proposing to manage the shared space in that way, and that is not to place the cost burden of having an owners corporation and the associated insurances, which have a minimum cost, which is circa $1,000 a year. So we reduce the cost and the burden of having an owners corporation to manage that front lot. We create individual titles that are owned into perpetuity and connected to each of the other titles. And it also then provides freedom of use, which I think is one of the fundamental aspects of how we can create successful communal space, in that, I have my block, someone else has their block, and if we choose not to collaborate, we don't have to. But I think sometimes when we remove the committee aspect of these relationships, we find that collaboration is slightly easier sometimes.
Thank you. Is that all your questions, Councillor Martin? Councillor Kavanagh.
Just a boundary wall on the rear of dwelling 3. Am I correct that it's a maximum height of 7.1 metres? It's 3.5 metres greater than the standard. I don't think you... Did you speak to that at all? Did I miss that bit?
That was... the council officers in their report accepted that as being appropriate, given that was adjacent to that laneway interface.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Could I ask a question? With the laneway, the 31.7 metres, is that a permeable surface? Is that actually considered a permeable space, or is that a concrete?
I guess in our assessment, it's not. Our landscape plan proposes that is it's a bluestone. It's a different treatment of bluestone to contrast it from the laneway, so that we don't have cars driving on it, and it's delineated with a strip of LED lighting. So it's different in treatment to the laneway, but it's a similar robust material to the laneway.
All right. Councillor Kavanagh?
And just the pink is in your ownership, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Entirely.
Any further questions from councillors? If not, I'm going to propose a 5-minute adjournment just for us to deliberate on some of the information you provided. So just bear with us. Thank you.
Sorry, you've got to put that to the vote.
No, adjournment. I can call an adjournment from the chair. Can you look at the local?
I think you can.
Hi, I'm Helen Davidson, Mayor of Moreland. I'm standing in Glenroy where there were meant to be noise walls, as promised by Daniel Andrews in the 2014 state election campaign. Some of the noise walls have been built, but much of Glenroy has been forgotten. I wonder how the residents here
love it. The main reason I started with family daycare was to be with my little one. Family daycare is a small environment, so mostly I only have 4 children and it's in a home. Moreland have been really supportive of the whole thing, and they helped me find children when I first started. There's so many benefits of working family daycare and becoming an educator. Working in your own home, flexible hours, also just watching the other children grow and being such a part of their life. I recommend to educators that want a good life balance, if they have their own child, family daycare is a great avenue to go down.
Hey Moreland, today I'm down in St Kilda for the Midsummer Pride March supporting the LGBTQ community. It's a beautiful day. I'm proud to be here representing Moreland, walking behind so many wonderful, dedicated people. This march goes towards exactly what our values are. At Moreland, we're one community proudly diverse. More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride!
So I've lived in Glenroy all my life. I've developed a great love of this municipality. It's provided me with a lot of services. I've enjoyed the facilities that Moreland has offered. For example, I used to come here as a child to the Oak Park pool. I would always get a 10-ticket ride pass for the slide in the summer. I remember doing laps and jumping into the pool at the deep end and playing on the pink elephant when I was very little. Another memory of mine is walking down the street to the Glenroy shopping strip. When me and my mum used to go down there, we'd always make sure we'd get a treat from the baker, stop off at the butcher and go read a book at the library. So all of those things, all of those services translate into urban planning, sporting facilities and supporting local business, which is part of what's so important to Moreland. Being a legal aid lawyer really helped with my understanding of the community, and I felt that I would be able to assist a broader community by becoming involved with local government. Moreland's gone through a huge change with many townhouses being built, and I'm looking forward to seeing more appropriate development and better standard and quality of development. So when I think of people that I want to assist in Moreland, I think about someone like my mum. So she's an older mum and she's given so much to me as an individual and to the community as a whole. There's many members of our community who may be a little bit more vulnerable or in a particular point in their life where they need a little bit more assistance, and I want Moreland to be able to help with that. So within the next 12 months, I'm looking forward to encouraging vigorous debate amongst councillors, that debate is well informed and that we're constantly going back out to the community and consulting with them. So ultimately, as a council, we're going to be most effective if we work together as a team, and I think we can achieve that.
I'm Moana Hope, most people call me Mo. I've grown up playing at Glenroy Football Club and now I play for Collingwood Football Club. I grew up in Glenroy, born and bred. My first year ever I played at Hatfield. From the second year all the way up to under 12s, it's Glenroy Football Club. I'm one of 14. And the reason why I got into it was my dad and my brothers. I used to watch all their games from the age of 3. It was community football, so it was the best type of football.
So proud.
Local footy is really important. I think, especially Glenroy being a suburb and this being the main supplier of sports for the community. You look at what Glenroy are trying to do here, trying to bring up a women's team, and in the background is my niece who just finished under 12. So at the moment she hasn't got a pathway. So Melanie's played for Glenroy from the same age as me, from the age of 7, and she is now too old to play boys football. So she's excited about the girls team, aren't you? Very. So she's extremely competitive, not as good as me. Probably a few kids are not on the right road, and I think if you give them that sport or that outlet to go and meet new people, it can benefit the community in more ways than one. What do I say to girls? It doesn't matter who you are, what your skill level you are, what fitness level you are. It's a good environment to be in, it's fun, you meet new mates. This is where you want to be, so come down and have a kick.
So I'm Claire Johnston and I'm an accredited cricket bat maker and the first female in the world. I learnt how to make cricket bats from Ian Cullen. There's a lot of bats out there for men, and I felt that there was an opportunity there to actually work with women to make better bats and to actually make them for their style. So
Thank you very much for your patience, everyone in the gallery. Were there some questions of officers first before a resolution was put forward? Yes, Councillor Riley.
Yes, I'd just like to have the councillors, the officers give us their perspective on some of the issues that were raised, particularly around the communication issues that have been raised, because I have concerns about that and the level of numbers that have been provided tonight, which I think is not ideal for this meeting. We're actually trying to decide on the principles and the objectives and the other parts of the planning scheme. So I'd like to have some of those clarified without me listing them all. I think you've probably got some of them there. And the other one was, I'm particularly wanting to have addressed the issue of the rear backyard issue, because I've heard the proponent's explanation, but I'd like to hear the officer's explanation of that in terms of the rear yards and the double storey aspect there.
Thank you, Councillor. In terms of the process, the application was lodged, as Mr Wells said, on the 14th of November. Council officers raised issues in a letter on the 18th of November, so about a week later. A response was received to that letter on the 1st of December, a few days later. It then went to public notice, which was slightly longer due to the Christmas New Year period. I telephoned the planning consultant that was representing the applicant or the owners in mid-January, further outlining the concerns with the development, with a meeting that was held on the 2nd of March. So I do believe there's been adequate communication over that period. In terms of the figures that have been presented to you tonight, it's standard practice for the officer's report to be made available on the Friday before the meeting. I don't know how long that's been standard practice for, but it's been standard practice for quite some time. The issues themselves were raised with the applicant well before the report being released. Yes, some of the specific numbers may not necessarily have been communicated until that Friday. However, holistically, the issues were raised with the applicant and they had adequate opportunity to respond. In terms of the neighbourhood character or the open rear yard character, so Council's local policy has a preference for development in the rear yard to be single storey, where it's in an open rear yard context. If we have a look at the aerial image on the screen there, we can see that while there are a number of outbuildings, sheds, aviaries, those sorts of things in the rear yard, generally it's pretty open. There are a number of green spaces you can see there. There are a number of trees. For this reason, I went back to the applicant and said, your dwelling number 3 or the rear dwelling should be single storey. And primarily that's to preserve those view lines. So when you're standing in the rear yard of number 3, for example, or those properties that front Ford Street, at the moment you've got a relatively open view. You can see the sky. You're not obstructed by double storey development. This particular proposal would interrupt that view, noting that there's obviously a development proposed on Hope Street, but as we can see, the context there is quite a bit different than that of Davison and Ford Street.
Can I just ask a question, another follow-up?
Yes,
Can you just clarify what the zone is on Hope Street, please? What is that, neighbourhood residential, or what is the zoning for the property?
It is all neighbourhood residential, apart from there's a small section of Hope Street further towards the train line, which is, so I'm just trying to find the right. There we go. So all the pink there is neighbourhood residential. The bluish in the corner there is commercial 1, which is further towards the railway line, and then Sydney Road a little bit further to the east.
Thank you very much. Any further questions from officers? I believe we have a procedural motion. Councillor Martin?
Yeah, so I'd like to move a procedural motion to defer this to the following UPC meeting, and if I can get leave from council, I'd like to explain why.
Yep, sure. I think council would like to hear the reasons.
So given the fact that we've had quite a few sort of rebuttals to the councillor, to the officer recommendations, I think it's only fair that we actually work through this with officers and we allow the proponents a little bit of extra time to work with officers to address some of these things, just to make sure that council have the correct numbers and we're able to make a fair and reasonable judgment on this. So yeah, I'd like to move that we defer this.
Okay, I'll put that procedural motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Thank you for your patience, everyone who's come to see that application, and we apologise for another month of delay, but we do want to get this decision right, so we've asked for a bit more time. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to our final item, which is DD 3217, 22, 24 to 26, 28 and 30 Pentridge Boulevard, and 27, 29 and 31 Urquhart Street, Coburg. Okay, apologies, and Councillor Aboud will leave the chamber. Bye, everybody. Okay, I'll turn to the officer to present the report.
This matter relates to a request to extend a planning permit at land at 22 to 30 Pentridge Boulevard and 27 to 31 Urquhart Street in Coburg. Relates to a planning permit that was issued by the Minister for Planning as his time as the responsible authority in 2012. The permit allows the construction of 8 buildings ranging in height between 6 and 16 stories. The slide on the screen shows the subject site. It's located in the activity centre zone and it's made up of a number of lots. In terms of a little bit of background, the request to extend the permit was first reported to the committee in April last year. It was the officer recommendation not to support that request, and the Urban Planning Committee upheld that recommendation. And it was determined not to support the request because council now owns 2 of the lots that are part of the subject site. That council has no intention of developing the land in the way that the permit allows, and that the proposal also failed to meet a number of MADSI building separation standards, and there was a 2-storey car park to Urquhart Street that was thought to be unacceptable. The matter is now before VCAT for a determination. What has happened since that appeal to VCAT is that the applicant has now also lodged a request with VCAT to formally amend that planning permit. It's known as a Section 87 request to amend the permit. And that amendment is seeking to delete 4 buildings from the permit, and the slide up on the screen depicts the buildings to be deleted with the red crosses. So 4 buildings of 9, 10, 13 and 16 stories are proposed to be removed. The 4 buildings that will remain are of 6, 8, 9 and 10 stories in height. So the report that's before you tonight seeks to resolve council's position with both matters that are now before VCAT. So in terms of the key considerations with the proposal to amend the permit, significantly it removes the buildings from the council-owned land, so the 2 lots, and as well as removing the buildings that are adjacent to council-owned land. And it was those buildings that the previous report outlined the issues with the MADSI separation non-compliance. It also removes the building which had the car park interface to Urquhart Street. With the removal of those 4 buildings, the maximum building height will be 10 stories in the development, which better aligns to the ACZ controls. There is also a minor change to Building D, which improves the interface to Pentridge Boulevard through the addition of an additional commercial tenancy. Council is also will be asked to turn its mind to whether public notice of the amendment request is required, and the officer recommendation is that public notice of the amendment is not required because of the substantial reduction in the development. 508 dwellings are being removed from the proposal, leaving 352 in the 4 buildings. In terms of the extension of time request, with the amendment to the development as proposed, it resolves largely the reasons for the non-support of the request. And the report also outlines that when the matter is considered against the other case law tests for extension of time requests, there are no other issues identified. So the recommendation is that the committee resolve to support the amendment to the permit and to advise VCAT that public notice of the amendment is not required, and to consent to the extension of time on the basis that the permit is amended as per the resolution.
Thank you very much. There won't be any objectors, and we want to hear from the applicant at this stage as well. Yes, is there a representative of the applicant here? Would you wish to speak? No. Okay. Are there any questions from councillors on this item? No. Is there a motion?
Sorry, can I?
Yes, Councillor Farnley.
Yeah, just to clarify. So this is a request for an extension of the permit time, and also for a reduction in the amount of buildings on site. Is that correct?
Just through the chair. So there are two matters now before VCAT. One is the extension of time request, and the other is the request to amend the permit, which removes 4 buildings from the permit.
Councillor Riley.
Another question of the officer. Does council have any proposals? I know that's not germane to this, but can you just, I mean, it is in the sense that it's related, but does council have any proposals for that land that's no longer forming part of this application, or is that, or not?
So the activity centre zone precinct identifies a future hospital development for that land, but there's no formal applications at this point in time.
Any further questions, comments from councillors? Is there a resolution? Councillor Kavanagh? So
Just a question. You mentioned about the large reduction in the number of units. If we just look at the units that are, without ignoring the 4 buildings that are now no longer there, just looking at the units that are currently there in the amendment compared to what's currently received approval, is there a reduction in the number of units?
To clarify that I understand.
Yeah, do you understand? So I understand there's 4 less buildings, so therefore that's reduced, so many units that are in those buildings. But just the buildings that are in this proposal, is it a large reduction or is it any reduction?
So in the 4 buildings that remain,
Yes.
there's no reduction
so.
in the number of dwellings in those buildings.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or clarifications from councillors? Is there a councillor who wishes to move a resolution? Councillor Farnley.
Happy to move the council officer recommendation.
Is there a seconder to that item?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Yeah. You wish to speak to it, Councillor Farnley?
Yeah, sure. I think this is a case of the developer coming with our council officers and working with them to get a pretty good outcome. And I think by not supporting that particular process, we're kind of sending a message to developers that coming and working before you go to VCAT to reach an amicable outcome is not something that we really consider here at the UPC. So it's something it's really important to consider. They've come and thought before we go to VCAT and potentially get everything, including 2 extra buildings, why don't we say this, hey council, the 2 adjacent buildings next to your property, we'll actually remove that from the entire permit altogether if you were to grant a permit. So there's a couple of things to consider here. The largest building before, as part of the permit, was 16 stories. The largest building now will be 10 stories. There's 508 dwellings being removed from the development. The buildings next to or adjacent to the council land are being removed, and obviously there's removal of the buildings on council-owned land. So there just seems to be a lot of benefit in working with these developers to get these outcomes. If we're talking about getting good outcomes for the community before applications go to VCAT, this seems to be an obvious one.
Thank you, Councillor Farnley. Councillor Cullyhannon, do you wish to speak to this? Okay. Is there a further comment? Councillor Martin.
Could I just confirm with the officer, has this gone to VCAT already?
It's listed for a hearing on the 11th of May and a practice hearing this Friday.
I'm happy to make a comment as well. I just want to, unless there's other councillors who wish to make a comment. Do you wish to?
I'll make a comment.
Yeah, certainly, Councillor Bolton.
I'm going to oppose the extension. I mean, it's not so magnanimous to remove planned buildings from land that's owned by council that council doesn't intend to develop I mean, that's not really, that's like council doesn't intend to build those buildings. So I don't think that's such a magnanimous thing. But I feel, I'm actually still opposed to the height of these buildings and the a literal forest of high-rise buildings. And yes, it is true that two, largest buildings on the site have been knocked out, but I actually think the remaining buildings will have a big impact on the residents that are already there on the sort of, without looking at the map again, on the nearest residents to these proposed buildings. I think there are going to be massive issues even of the residents of these towers with lack of sunlight, having so many tall towers so close together. I actually think this will be a really problematic development. So I'm voting against there being any kind of extension to the planning permit.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. I too would like to speak against the proposal and I won't be supporting the extension of the permit. And there's a number of reasons for that. The Urban Planning Committee made its original decision based on a number of reasons. We have some concerns with this site and overall the Pentridge sites, which is why we indeed have embarked on a review of the master plans, which we want to do collaboratively as much as possible with the owners of all the sites, and I believe we've asked for meetings with the proponent of this site and are yet to meet. So there is opportunity to work collaboratively with us. I don't know whether the opportunity has been taken up at this point. In terms of the buildings that are remaining in the permit, my reading of the officer recommendations is there's still non-compliances with height. I think there's an extra story in a couple of sections. It doesn't comply with the apartment design code. And one of the rationales for approving extension, even if it doesn't meet those requirements, is, well, at the time it was applied for, those planning schemes weren't in place. But that's where you get this chicken and egg situation. In fact, the delay in developing the application has seen council progress significantly in its preferred vision for this site, to the point at which these applications are lagging well behind. So we have an opportunity here to get a better outcome, and I think that we should take that opportunity. And it's the reason why there is often a time limit on when you should be able to commence your building by, so that you adhere to the planning policy environment at the time. Well, that's my reading of it. So I think there are significant problems with granting an extension. I know there's a VCAT mediation on foot, and I hope that we'll be able to get a more significant outcome and hopefully a better development outcome for the existing buildings. Any other councillors that wish to speak for or against Councillor Martin?
I also wish to rise to speak against, and I would just like to say that I do echo the comments that Councillor Bolton has raised, and that is that I do believe that this is still too high for the residents in the area, and I think that the developers, I think that they should consider, not having any buildings in the area that are in the double figures for stories. I think it's reasonable, and along with the lines of the height issues, I think that we should really consider that, given we have a new vision for the area. So,
any further councillors who wish to speak for or against this item? Councillor Tapanos.
I'm going to speak for the officer's recommendation as moved, and most of you will know my views on Pentridge, and I don't normally support a lot of these requests to actually have permits renewed. But in this case specifically, I think that what is being offered by the developer is considerably better than what is the old permit. I mean, we are seeing a number of buildings removed. We are seeing that the rest of the development is being intact, including the large public square and the public realm improvements. It is some distance from the historical core. It is an area of the site that I think could obtain more dense development. And I think that overall we need to consider the basis in which we make these decisions. And that basis is, has there been a change in the planning scheme in regards to this? Now, my understanding, and the officers can correct me if I'm wrong, but despite council might be having different visions, I haven't even seen the vision articulated as yet. The planning scheme has not changed. The master plan has not changed. So there's really no grounds to refuse an extension of time. in the way that these matters are considered by this committee. But if you were to consider exactly what is occurring and the difference between the applications, surely you would have to come to the conclusion that there is nothing but benefits from the community perspective in what is being sought and should be supported.
Thank you, Councillor Tapanos. And just to one of your points that you made about the planning scheme not changing, I believe the Coburg Activity Centre controls have come in subsequent to this original application. That is one of the new considerations, and it does apply in this context. Any other councillors wish to speak to this item? I'm going to call a quick adjournment. We should have to find a procedural way forward, given there's an alternative prepared. So apologies, we have to have a 5-minute adjournment.
I'm Claire Johnston, and I'm an accredited cricket bat maker and the first female in the world. I learnt how to make cricket bats from Ian Cullen. There's a lot of bats out there for men, and I felt that there was an opportunity there to actually work with women to make better bats and to actually make them for their style. So recently I was commissioned to make 5 cricket bats for the Pascoe Vale Headfield Cricket Club for their under-13s girls cricket team. And yeah, to see their faces when they were given the cricket bats was just brilliant. So what I'd really love to be able to do is to keep working with my local community, the local cricket clubs, particularly the women, and yeah, work to make great cricket bats.
My name is Michael Tortoni. I'm the founder of Melbourne's legendary jazz club, Bennett's Lane. I've recently moved to the very, very cool Brunswick. The Jazz Lab here on Leslie Street, Brunswick is Melbourne's new home of jazz. In my old club, you might have seen Prince for a late night set, or the Wynton Marsalis Band, or even the Harry Connick Jr. Trio. My new club will also host stars of contemporary music, starting with the Bill Frisell Trio for the Melbourne International Jazz Festival, as well as local stars. So drop in for some great music and a drink at the Jazz Lab.
So my name is Zainab Abouid. I'm 19 years old and I currently study the Bachelor's of Law and International Relations at La Trobe University. I partake in my local community by volunteering with local MPs such as Peter Khalil. I like to also attend and organise events that surround family violence to help ensure that women are heard and young women have voices. I wanted to represent myself as a Muslim woman and represent my community, so I thought why not start at a young age, so when I grow up perhaps I can be in Parliament one day. I feel like I should take advantage of these opportunities and make sure that I advocate on behalf of women, especially in my community that are subjected to family violence.
Hi, I'm Helen Davidson, Mayor of Moreland. I'm standing in Glenroy where there were meant to be noise walls, as promised by Daniel Andrews in the 2014 state election campaign. Some of the noise walls have been built, but much of Glenroy has been forgotten. I wonder how the residents here slept last night. Residents tell me their school-aged kids get up in the morning tired and they can't concentrate in class. Now, a little more than 2 years since Daniel Andrews became Premier, it's incredibly disappointing to learn the state government has no plans to extend the noise walls in this area. Our community's health is at risk, and both myself and other councillors continue to receive calls from residents asking for our help. Come on, Premier Andrews, keep your promise to the people of Glenroy.
My name's Leslie. I have been with Moreland Family Daycare as an educator for over 36 years, I think. Family Daycare is a wonderful organisation. We look after children in our own home, they blend in with the family, and it's fantastic.
I love Family Daycare.
I can choose my own hours, very flexible. I've made wonderful friendships with lots of the families. I'm now looking after children of the children I used to care for. The children just growing and developing is a wonderful, wonderful experience for me every day. I'd recommend Family Daycare to anybody and everybody.
We love you.
Oh. Oh, where's my Scouty snuggle? Where's my Scouty snuggle? Can I have a Scouty snuggle? How's your tea party going?
My name's Hilary. I've been with Moreland Family Daycare for 8 months now and I absolutely love it. The main reason I started with Family Daycare was to be with my little one. Family Daycare is a small environment, so mostly I only have 4 children and it's in a home. Moreland have been really supportive of the whole thing and they helped me find children when I first started. There's so many benefits of working Family Daycare and becoming an educator. Working in your own home, flexible hours, also just watching the other children grow and being such a part of their life. I recommend to educators that want a good life balance if they have their own child. Family Daycare is a great avenue to go down.
Hey Moreland, today I'm down in St Kilda for the Midsummer Pride March supporting the LGBTQ community. It's a beautiful day. I'm proud to be here representing Moreland, walking behind so many wonderful dedicated people. This march goes towards exactly what our values are. At Moreland, we're one community proudly diverse.
More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride!
So I've lived in Glenroy all my life. I've developed a great love of this municipality. It's provided me with a lot of services. I've enjoyed the facilities that Moreland has offered. For example, I used to come here as a child to the Oak Park pool. I would always get a 10-ticket ride pass for the slide in the summer. I remember doing laps and jumping into the pool at the deep end and playing on the pink elephant when I was very little. Another memory of mine is walking down the street to the Glenroy shopping strip. When me and my mum used to go down there, we'd always make sure we'd get a treat from the baker, stop off at the butcher and go read a book at the library. So all of those things, all of those services translate into urban planning, sporting facilities and supporting local business, which is part of what's so important to Moreland. Being a legal aid lawyer really helped with my understanding of the community, and I felt that I would be able to assist a broader community by becoming involved with local government. Moreland's gone through a huge change with many townhouses being built, and I'm looking forward to seeing more appropriate development and better standard and quality of development. So when I think of people that I want to assist in Moreland, I think about someone like my mum. So she's an older mum and she's given so much to me as an individual and to the community as a whole. There's many members of our community who may be a little bit more vulnerable or in a particular point in their life where they need a little bit more assistance, and I want Moreland to be able to help with that. So within the next 12 months, I'm looking forward to encouraging vigorous debate amongst councillors, that debate is well informed and that we're constantly going back out to the community and consulting with them. So ultimately, as a council, we're going to be most effective if we work together as a team, and I think we can achieve that.
I'm Moana Hope, most people call me Mo. I've grown up playing at Glenroy Football Club and now I play for Glenroy Football Club. I grew up in Glenroy, born and bred. My first year ever I played at Hatfield. From the second year all the way up to under 12s, it's Glenroy Football Club. I'm one of 14, and the reason why I got into it was my dad and my brothers. I used to watch all their games from the age of 3. It was community football, so it was the best type of football.
So proud.
Local footy is really important, I think, especially Merri-bek being a suburb and this being the main supplier of sports for the community. You look at what Glenroy are trying to do here, they're trying to bring up a women's team, and in the background is my niece who just finished under 12, so at the moment she hasn't got a pathway. So Melanie's played for Glenroy from the same age as me, from the age of 7, and she is now too old to play boys football. So she's excited about the girls team, aren't you? Very. So she's extremely competitive, not as good as me. Probably a few kids are not on the right road, and I think if you give them that sport or that outlet to go and meet new people, it can benefit the community in more ways than one. What do I say to girls? It doesn't matter who you are, what your skill level you are, what fitness level you are. It's a good environment to be in, it's fun, you meet new mates. This is where you want to be, so come down and have a kick.
So I'm Claire Johnston and I'm an accredited cricket bat maker and the first female in the world. I learnt how to make cricket bats from Ian Cullen. There's a lot of bats out there for men, and I felt that there was an opportunity there to actually work with women to make better bats and to actually make them for their style. So recently I was commissioned to make 5 cricket bats for the Pascoe Vale Headfield Cricket Club for their under-13s girls cricket team. And yeah, to see their faces when they were given the cricket bats was just brilliant. So what I'd really love to be able to do is to keep working with my local community, the local cricket clubs, particularly the women, and yeah, work to make great cricket bats.
My name is Michael Tortoni. I'm the founder of Melbourne's legendary jazz club, Bennett's Lane. I've recently moved to the very, very cool Brunswick. The Jazz Lab here on Leslie Street, Brunswick is Melbourne's new home of jazz. In my old club, you might have seen Prince for a late night set, or the Wynton Marsalis Band, or even the Harry Connick Jr. Trio. My new club will also host stars of contemporary music, starting with the Bill Frisell Trio for the Melbourne International Jazz Festival, as well as local stars. So drop in for some great music and a drink at the Jazz Lab.
So my name is Zainab Abouid. I'm 19 years old and I currently study the Bachelor's of Law and International Relations at La Trobe University. I partake in my local community by volunteering with local MPs such as Peter Killil. I like to also attend and organise events that surround family violence to help ensure that women are heard and young women have voices. I wanted to represent myself as a Muslim woman and represent my community, so I thought why not start at a young age, so when I grow up perhaps I can be in Parliament one day. I feel like I should take advantage of these opportunities and make sure that I advocate on behalf of women, especially in my community that are subjected to family violence.
Hi, I'm Helen Davidson, Mayor of Moreland. I'm standing in Glenroy where there were meant to be noise walls, as promised by Daniel Andrews in the 2014 state election campaign. Some of the noise walls have been built, but much of Glenroy has been forgotten. I wonder how the residents here slept last night. Residents tell me their school-aged kids get up in the morning tired and they can't concentrate in class. Now, a little more than 2 years since Daniel Andrews became Premier, it's incredibly disappointing to learn the state government has no plans to extend the noise walls in this area. Our community's health is at risk, and both myself and other councillors continue to receive calls from residents asking for our help. Come on, Premier Andrews, keep your promise to the people of Glenroy.
My name's Leslie. I have been with Moreland Family Daycare as an educator for over 36 years, I think. Family Daycare is a wonderful organisation. We look after children in our own home, they blend in with the family, and it's fantastic.
I love Family Daycare.
I can choose my own hours, very flexible. I've made wonderful friendships with lots of the families. I'm now looking after children of the children I used to care for. The children just growing and developing is a wonderful, wonderful experience for me every day. I'd recommend Family Daycare to anybody and everybody. Oh, where's my Scouty snuggle? Where's my scouty snuggle? Can I have a scouty snuggle? How's your tea party going?
My name's Hilary. I've been with Moreland Family Daycare for 8 months now and I absolutely love it. The main reason I started with Family Daycare was to be with my little one. Family Daycare is a small environment, so mostly I only have 4 children and it's in a home. Moreland have been really supportive of the whole thing and they helped me find children when I first started. There's so many benefits of working in Family Daycare and becoming an educator. Working in your own home, flexible hours, also just watching the other children grow and being such a part of their life. I recommend to educators that want a good life balance if they have their own child. Family Daycare is a great avenue to go down.
Hey Moreland, today I'm down in St Kilda for the Midsummer Pride March supporting the LGBTQ community. It's a beautiful day. I'm proud to be here representing Moreland, walking behind so many wonderful dedicated people. This march goes towards exactly what our values are. At Moreland, we're one community proudly diverse.
More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride!
So I've lived in Glenroy all my life. I've developed a great love of this municipality. It's provided me with a lot of services. I've enjoyed the facilities that Moreland has offered. For example, I used to come here as a child to the Oak Park pool. I would always get a 10-ticket ride pass for the slide in the summer. I remember doing laps and jumping into the pool at the deep end and playing on the pink elephant when I was very little. Another memory of mine is walking down the street to the Glenroy shopping strip. When me and my mum used to go down there, we'd always make sure we'd get a treat from the baker, stop off at the butcher and go read a book at the library. So all of those things, all of those services translate into urban planning, sporting facilities and supporting local business, which is part of what's so important to Moreland. Being a legal aid lawyer really helped with my understanding of the community, and I felt that I would be able to assist a broader community by becoming involved with local government. Moreland's gone through a huge change with many townhouses being built, and I'm looking forward to seeing more appropriate development and better standard and quality of development. So when I think of people that I want to assist in Moreland, I think about someone like my mum. So she's an older mum and she's given so much to me as an individual and to the community as a whole. There's many members of our community who may be a little bit more vulnerable or in a particular point in their life where they need a little bit more assistance, and I want Moreland to be able to help with that. So within the next 12 months, I'm looking forward to encouraging vigorous debate amongst councillors, that debate is well informed and that we're constantly going back out to the community and consulting with them. So ultimately, as a council, we're going to be most effective if we work together as a team, and I think we can achieve that.
I'm Moana Hope, most people call me Mo. I've grown up playing at Glenroy Football Club and now I play for Collingwood Football Club. I grew up in Glenroy, born and bred. My first year ever I played at Hatfield. From the second year all the way up to under 12s, it's Glenroy Football Club. I'm one of 14, and the reason why I got into it was my dad and my brothers. I used to watch all their games from the age of 3. It was community football, so it was the best type of football.
So proud.
Local footy is really important. I think, especially Glenroy being the suburb and this being the main supplier of sports for the community. You look at what Glenroy are trying to do here, trying to bring up a women's team, and in the background is my niece who just finished under 12. So at the moment she hasn't got a pathway. So Melanie's played for Glenroy from the same age as me, from the age of 7. and she's now too old to play boys football. So she's excited about the girls team, aren't you? Very. So she's extremely competitive, not as good as me. Probably a few kids that are not on the right road, and I think if you give them that sport or that outlet to go and meet new people, it can benefit the community in more ways than one. What do I say to girls? It doesn't matter who you are, what your skill level you are, what fitness level you are. It's a good environment to be in, it's fun, you meet new mates. This is where you want to be, so come down and have a kick.
So I'm Claire Johnston and I'm an accredited cricket bat maker and the first female in the world. I learnt how to make cricket bats from Ian Cullen. There's a lot of bats out there for men, and I felt that there was an opportunity there to actually work with women to make better bats and to actually make them for their style. So recently I was commissioned to make 5 cricket bats for the Pascoe Vale Headfield Cricket Club for their under-13s girls cricket team. And yeah, to see their faces when they were given the cricket bats was just brilliant. So what I'd really love to be able to do is to keep working with my local community, the local cricket clubs, particularly the women, and yeah, work to make great cricket bats.
My name is Michael Tortoni. I'm the founder of Melbourne's legendary jazz club, Bennett's Lane. I've recently moved to the very, very cool Brunswick. The Jazz Lab here on Leslie Street, Brunswick is Melbourne's new home of jazz. In my old club, you might have seen Prince for a late night set, or the Wynton Marsalis Band, or even the Harry Connick Jr. Trio. My new club will also host stars of contemporary music, starting with the Bill Frisell Trio for the Melbourne International Jazz Festival, as well as local stars. So drop in for some great music and a drink at the Jazz Lab.
So my name is Zainab Abouid. I'm 19 years old and I currently study the Bachelor's of Law and International Relations at La Trobe University. I partake in my local community by volunteering with local MPs such as Peter Khalil. I like to also attend and organise events that surround family violence to help ensure that women are heard and young women have voices. I wanted to represent myself as a Muslim woman and represent my community, so I thought why not start at a young age, so when I grow up perhaps I can be in Parliament one day. I feel like I should take advantage of these opportunities and make sure that I advocate on behalf of women, especially in my community that are subjected to family violence.
Hi, I'm Helen Davidson, Mayor of Moreland. I'm standing in Glenroy where there were meant to be noise walls, as promised by Daniel Andrews in the 2014 state election campaign. Some of the noise walls have been built, but much of Glenroy has been forgotten. I wonder how the residents here slept last night. Residents tell me their school-aged kids get up in the morning tired and they can't concentrate in class. Now, a little more than 2 years since Daniel Andrews became Premier, it's incredibly disappointing to learn the state government has no plans to extend the noise walls in this area. Our community's health is at risk, and both myself and other councillors continue to receive calls from residents asking for our help. Come on, Premier Andrews, keep your promise to the people of Glenroy.
My name's Leslie. I have been with Moreland Family Daycare as an educator for over 36 years, I think. Family Daycare is a wonderful organisation. We look after children in our own home, they blend in with the family, and it's fantastic.
I love Family Daycare.
I can choose my own hours, very flexible. I've made wonderful friendships with lots of the families. I'm now looking after children of the children I used to care for. The children just growing and developing is a wonderful, wonderful experience for me every day. I'd recommend Family Daycare to anybody and everybody. Oh, where's my Scouty snuggle? Where's my Scouty snuggle? Can I have a Scouty snuggle? Mwah. How's your tea party going?
My name's Hilary. I've been with Moreland Family Daycare for 8 months now and I absolutely love it. The main reason I started with Family Daycare was to be with my little one. Family Daycare is a small environment, so mostly I only have 4 children and it's in a home. Moreland have been really supportive of the whole thing and they helped me find children when I first started. There's so many benefits of working Family Daycare and becoming an educator. Working in your own home, flexible hours, also just watching the other children grow and being such a part of their life. I recommend to educators that want a good life balance if they have their own child. Family Daycare is a great avenue to go down.
Hey Moreland, today I'm down in St Kilda for the Midsummer Pride March supporting the LGBTQ community. It's a beautiful day. I'm proud to be here representing Moreland, walking behind so many wonderful dedicated people. This march goes towards exactly what our values are. At Moreland, we're one community proudly diverse.
More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride!
So I've lived in Glenroy all my life. I've developed a great love of this municipality. It's provided me with a lot of services. I've enjoyed the facilities that Moreland has offered. For example, I used to come here as a child to the Oak Park pool. I would always get a 10-ticket ride pass for the slide in the summer. I remember doing laps and jumping into the pool at the deep end and playing on the pink elephant when I was very little. Another memory of mine is walking down the street to the Glenroy shopping strip. When me and my mum used to go down there, we'd always make sure we'd get a treat from the baker, stop off at the butcher and go read a book at the library. So all of those things, all of those services translate into urban planning, sporting facilities and supporting local business, which is part of what's so important to Moreland. Being a legal aid lawyer really helped with my understanding of the community, and I felt that I would be able to assist a broader community by becoming involved with local government. Moreland's gone through a huge change with many townhouses being built, and I'm looking forward to seeing more appropriate development and better standard and quality of development. So when I think of people that I want to assist in Moreland, I think about someone like my mum. So she's an older mum and she's given so much to me as an individual and to the community as a whole. There's many members of our community who may be a little bit more vulnerable or in a particular point in their life where they need a little bit more assistance, and I want Moreland to be able to help with that. So within the next 12 months, I'm looking forward to encouraging vigorous debate amongst councillors, that debate is well informed and that we're constantly going back out to the community and consulting with them. So ultimately, as a council, we're going to be most effective if we work together as a team, and I think we can achieve that.
I'm Moana Hope, most people call me Mo. I've grown up playing at Glenroy Football Club and now I play for Collingwood Football Club. I grew up in Glenroy, born and bred. My first year ever I played at Hatfield. From the second year all the way up to under 12s, it's Glenroy Football Club. I'm one of 14, and the reason why I got into it was my dad and my brothers. I used to watch all their games from the age of 3. It was community football, so it was the best type of football.
So proud.
Local footy is really important, I think, especially Merri-bek being a suburb and this being the main supplier of sports for the community. You look at what Glenroy are trying to do here, trying to bring up a women's team, and in the background is my niece who just finished under 12, so at the moment she hasn't got a pathway. So Melanie's played for Glenroy from the same age as me, from the age of 7, and she is now too old to play boys football. So she's excited about the girls' team, aren't you?
Very.
So she's extremely competitive, not as good as me.
Calm down.
Probably a few kids are not on the right road, and I think if you give them that sport or that outlet to go and meet new people, it can benefit the community in more ways than one. What do I say to girls? It doesn't matter who you are, what your skill level you are, what fitness level you are. It's a good environment to be in, it's fun, you meet new mates. This is where you want to be, so come down and have a kick.
So I'm Claire Johnston and I'm an accredited cricket bat maker and the first female in the world. I learnt how to make cricket bats from Ian Cullen. There's a lot of bats out there for men and I felt that there was an opportunity there to actually work with women to make better bats and to actually make them for their style. So recently I was commissioned to make 5 cricket bats for the Pascoe Vale Headfield Cricket Club for their under-13s girls cricket team. And yeah, to see their faces when they were given the cricket bats was just brilliant. So what I'd really love to be able to do is to keep working with my local community, the local cricket clubs, particularly the women, and yeah, work to make great cricket bats.
My name is Michael Tortoni. I'm the founder of Melbourne's legendary jazz club, Bennett's Lane. I've recently moved to the very, very cool Brunswick. The Jazz Lab here on Leslie Street, Brunswick is Melbourne's new home of jazz. In my old club, you might have seen Prince for a late night set, or the Wynton Marsalis Band, or even the Harry Connick Jr. Trio. My new club will also host stars of contemporary music, starting with the Bill Frisell Trio for the Melbourne International Jazz Festival, as well as local stars. So drop in for some great music and a drink at the Jazz Lab.
So my name is Zainab Abouid. I'm 19 years old and I currently study the Bachelor's of Law and International Relations at La Trobe University. I partake in my local community by volunteering with local MPs such as Peter Khalil. I like to also attend and organise events that surround family violence to help ensure that women are heard and young women have voices. I wanted to represent myself as a Muslim woman and represent my community, so I thought why not start at a young age, so when I grow up perhaps I can be in Parliament one day. I feel like I should take advantage of these opportunities and make sure that I advocate on behalf of women, especially in my community that are subjected to family violence.
Hi, I'm Helen Davidson, Mayor of Moreland. I'm standing in Glenroy where there were meant to be noise walls, as promised by Daniel Andrews in the 2014 state election campaign. Some of the noise walls have been built, but much of Glenroy has been forgotten. I wonder how the residents here slept last night. Residents tell me their school-aged kids get up in the morning tired and they can't concentrate in class. Now, a little more than 2 years since Daniel Andrews became Premier, it's incredibly disappointing to learn the state government has no plans to extend the noise walls in this area. Our community's health is at risk, and both myself and other councillors continue to receive calls from residents asking for our help. Come on, Premier Andrews, keep your promise to the people of Glenroy.
My name's Leslie. I have been with Moreland Family Daycare as an educator for over 36 years, I think. Family Daycare is a wonderful organisation. We look after children in our own home, they blend in with the family, and it's fantastic.
I love Family Daycare.
I can choose my own hours, very flexible. I've made wonderful friendships with lots of the families. I'm now looking after children of the children I used to care for. The children just growing and developing is a wonderful, wonderful experience for me every day. I'd recommend Family Daycare to anybody and everybody. Oh, where's my Scouty snuggle? Where's my Scouty snuggle? Can I have a Scouty snuggle? How's your tea party going?
My name's Hilary. I've been with Moreland Family Daycare for 8 months now and I absolutely love it. The main reason I started with Family Daycare was to be with my little one. Family Daycare is a small environment, so mostly I only have 4 children and it's in a home. Moreland have been really supportive of the whole thing and they helped me find children when I first started. There's so many benefits of working in Family Daycare and becoming an educator. Working in your own home, flexible hours, also just watching the other children grow and being such a part of their life. I recommend to educators that want a good life balance if they have their own child. Family Daycare is a great avenue to go down.
Hey Moreland, today I'm down in St Kilda for the Midsummer Pride March supporting the LGBTQ community. It's a beautiful day. I'm proud to be here representing Moreland, walking behind so many wonderful dedicated people. This march goes towards exactly what our values are. At Moreland, we're one community proudly diverse. More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride! More pride!
So I've lived in Glenroy all my life. I've developed a great love of this municipality. It's provided me with a lot of services. I've enjoyed the facilities that Moreland has offered. For example, I used to come here as a child to the Oak Park pool. I would always get a 10-ticket ride pass for the slide in the summer. I remember doing laps and jumping into the pool at the deep end and playing on the pink elephant when I was very little. Another memory of mine is walking down the street to the Glenroy shopping strip. When me and my mum used to go down there, we'd always make sure we'd get a treat from the baker, stop off at the butcher and go read a book at the library. So all of those things, all of those services translate into urban planning, sporting facilities and supporting local business, which is part of what's so important to Moreland. Being a legal aid lawyer really helped with my understanding of the community, and I felt that I would be able to assist a broader community by becoming involved with local government. Moreland's gone through a huge change with many townhouses being built, and I'm looking forward to seeing more appropriate development and better standard and quality of development. So when I think of people that I want to assist in Moreland, I think about someone like my mum. So she's an older mum and she's given so much to me as an individual and to the community as a whole. There's many members of our community who may be a little bit more vulnerable or in a particular point in their life where they need a little bit more assistance, and I want Moreland to be able to help with that. So within the next 12 months, I'm looking forward to encouraging vigorous debate amongst councillors, that debate is well informed and that we're constantly going back out to the community and consulting with them. So ultimately, as a council, we're going to be most effective if we work together as a team, and I think we can achieve that.
I'm Moana Hope, most people call me Mo. I've grown up playing at Glenroy Football Club and now I play for Collingwood Football Club. I grew up in Glenroy, born and bred. My first year ever I played at Hatfield. From the second year all the way up to under 12s, it's Glenroy Football Club. I'm one of 14, and the reason why I got into it was my dad and my brothers. I used to watch all their games from the age of 3. It was community football, so it was the best type of football.
So proud.
Local footy is really important, I think, especially Merri-bek being the suburb and this being the main supplier of sports for the community. You look at what Glenroy are trying to do here, they're trying to bring up a women's team, and in the background is my niece who just finished under 12, so at the moment she hasn't got a pathway. So Melanie's played for Glenroy from the same age as me, from the age of 7, and she is now too old to play boys football. So she's excited about the girls team, aren't you? Very. So she's extremely competitive, not as good as me. Calm down. Probably a few kids that are not on the right road, and I think if you give them that sport or that outlet to go and meet new people, it can benefit the community in more ways than one. What do I say to girls? It doesn't matter who you are, what your skill level you are, what fitness level you are. It's a good environment to be in, it's fun, you meet new mates. This is where you want to be, so come down and have a kick.
So I'm Claire Johnston and I'm an accredited cricket bat maker and the first female in the world. I learnt how to make cricket bats from Ian Cullen. There's a lot of bats out there for men and I felt that there was an opportunity there to actually work with women to make better bats and to actually make them for their style. So recently I was commissioned to make 5 cricket bats for the Pascoe Vale Headfield Cricket Club for their under-13s girls cricket team. And yeah, to see their faces when they were given the cricket bats was just brilliant. So what I'd really love to be able to do is to keep working with my local community, the local cricket clubs, particularly the women, and yeah, work to make great cricket bats.
My name is Michael Tortoni. I'm the founder of Melbourne's legendary jazz club, Bennett's Lane. I've recently moved to the very, very cool Brunswick. The Jazz Lab here on Leslie Street, Brunswick is Melbourne's new home of jazz. In my old club, you might have seen Prince for a late night set, or the Wynton Marsalis Band, or even the Harry Connick Jr. Trio. My new club will also host stars of contemporary music, starting with the Bill Frisell Trio for the Melbourne International Jazz Festival, as well as local stars. So drop in for some great music and a drink at the Jazz Lab.
So my name is Zainab Abouid. I'm 19 years old and I currently study the Bachelor's of Law and International Relations at La Trobe University. I partake in my local community by volunteering with local MPs such as Peter Khalil. I like to also attend and organise events that surround family violence to help ensure that women are heard and young women have voices. I wanted to represent myself as a Muslim woman and represent my community, so I thought why not start at a young age, so when I grow up perhaps I can be in Parliament one day. I feel like I should take advantage of these opportunities and make sure that I advocate on behalf of women, especially in my community that are subjected to family violence.
Hi, I'm Helen Davidson, Mayor of Moreland. I'm standing in Glenroy where there were meant to be noise walls, as promised by Daniel Andrews in the 2014 state election campaign. Some of the noise walls have been built, but much of Glenroy has been forgotten. I wonder how the residents here slept last night. Residents tell me their school-aged kids get up in the morning tired and they can't concentrate in class. Now, a little more than 2 years since Daniel Andrews became Premier, it's incredibly disappointing to learn the state government has no plans to extend the noise walls in this area. Our community's health is at risk, and both myself and other councillors continue to receive calls from residents asking for our help. Come on, Premier Andrews, keep your promise to the people of Glenroy.
My name's Leslie. I have been with Moreland Family Daycare as an educator for over 36 years, I think. Family Daycare is a wonderful organisation.
All right, thank you for your patience to everyone watching at home and in the gallery. We're resuming the meeting at 9 p.m. So we left the debate at the end of questions. Are there any further questions that councillors want to ask before a motion is proposed?
I believe we're voting on.
Apologies, we had a first and seconder. No, we didn't. We had...
No, we didn't.
Oh, sorry, apologies. My
We're in the
apologies.
middle of debate.
Now, Councillor Carly Hannon has
Seconded
seconded the motion but has since left the meeting. So I'm not sure whether she can remain a seconder.
I'm happy to take up seconding rights.
I think let's change the seconding. Okay, Councillor Fana and Councillor Tapanos, do you wish to speak to it?
I think I did.
Okay, yes, no problem. If you want to speak as a seconder. Any further comment on this resolution? Is there a foreshadowed resolution?
Yeah. Do you want me to speak again?
Just if there is a foreshadowed motion, just identify that there is a foreshadowed
Yes,
motion
there
in the
is.
case that this is lost.
I do have an alternative motion if this is lost.
Okay, so I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour of Councillor
hang on.
Farnley's...
What's the alternative?
would you like to outline the foreshadowed, Councillor Bolton?
So the word, do you want me to read it all out? The Urban Planning Committee resolved that it's revised...
No, it's not required. Is it the one that's been circulated?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So in essence, the foreshadowed motion is a refusal of the extension of the permit, but supporting elements of the amendment. Okay, so I'm going to go back to put the motion that's on the floor to the vote. All those in favour of Councillor Farnley's motion? All those against? I declare that lost. Councillor Bolton, do you want to outline your motion?
Yes, so the alternative motion is that the Urban Planning Committee resolved that its revised position at VCAT B1, an extension of time to planning permit 2011, well, I'll leave out the numbers, not be supported on the following grounds. A, there has been a change of planning policy. B, the landowner has not sufficiently demonstrated a commitment to proceed with proposed development and is considered to be seeking to warehouse the permit. C, their intervening circumstances as bearing upon grant or refusal. D, changes in planning provisions and policy are considered to result in a low probability that a permit will be issued should a fresh application be made. 2, that in the event that the extension of time to planning permit 2011/012837A is approved, VCAT be advised that Council supports the following amendments to the planning permit. A, deletion of buildings E1, E2, F and G. B, minor alterations to building D at level 1 and level 1 mezzanine, including an additional retail tenancy facing Pentridge Boulevard and a further reduction of car parking spaces to accommodate this. 3, that the amendment be supported on the basis that planning permit 2011/012837A is amended in the following way. A, amend the address to which the permit applies to be 22, 24 to 26 and 28 Pentridge Boulevard, Coburg. B, amend the permit preamble to remove reference to the use of the land for a shop, as well as the words, quote, including a variation to the building height in the table to the sub-precinct B. C, amend condition 1 to reflect deletion of conditions referred to below, require an updated site plan to reflect the deletion of buildings E1, E2, F and G, and to clearly show the stages in which the development will be constructed, including the shared access way. D, amend condition 1D to include a requirement that a 108 car parking spaces be provided for the 108 dwellings in building D. E, delete conditions 1E, 1F, 1G and 1H, which related to buildings which are to be removed from the development. F, modification of condition 4 to remove any parts of the condition relating to streetscape works along Urquhart Street, given that the buildings which will remain in the development do not front Urquhart Street. G, additional condition requiring an amendment to the car parking management plan forming part of the S173 agreement affecting the site to reflect the modified car parking provision in Building D and removing the council-owned land from the management plan. 4, that VCAT be advised that public notice of the proposed amendments to the permit is required. So the words not needs to be taken out. Is required given that the proposed amendments represent a reduction in built form and number of dwellings.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there a seconder to that motion? I'm happy to second it from the chair. Councillor Bolton, do you wish to speak to the item?
I think it is. This is an important motion. I think adequate time to be able to construct dwellings is given in the current planning permit system. I am worried about developers all over the city, including at Pentridge, warehousing or land banking is the other term permits. I noticed Future Estate has just recently sold a parcel of land late last year, I think, or early this year. So I think I'm not in favour of extending the planning permit. This motion also notes that it's obviously a good thing for some of the buildings to be deleted in the proposed amendment to the planning permit proposed by the applicant. So, this motion is fairly simple in that regard. I certainly do believe there should be, public notice of the proposed amendments. Too much at Pentridge has happened without residents knowing or being aware about major changes in the whole Pentridge area, and not just the southern part of Pentridge, the entire part of Pentridge. So I think that is very important. Residents, have really been excluded from the process of planning their suburb or this section of their suburb. So I'd certainly like to commend that councillors vote in favour of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. I don't wish to add anything further. I spoke previous to the motion. Councillor Kavanagh and Councillor Tapanos.
Can I just suggest a small amendment, please? Just in the last line, if we could finish the sentence at
Is required.
Is required, because it gives reasons why after that as to why we wouldn't require a.
I support
okay,
that.
so yeah. And
Delete from given to dwellings, and I'm supportive of that
so
too.
just finish it required.
That's been accepted by the mover and seconder. Councillor Tapanos.
Can I request that we put dot point 1 separate from dot point 2 and 3 and 4?
Okay, you want to move the items separately?
Yeah, or just put them to the vote separately. Because I'm happy to support 2, 3 and 4 on the depending on what the outcome of 1 is, but I'm not happy to support 1. And I have some questions about it.
Okay, so I think that
so
would work.
I mean, and I know
Some questions. You asked
I
some
know
questions
it's,
first.
I know
Councillor
it's
Tapanos.
late, but I mean, this type of stuff is thrown upon us for a decision on the run. So, 1A, there has been a change of planning policy. I'd like to, through the chair, ask the mover what that change of planning policy is. It's not stated. And
I'm happy to
point
answer that.
1B, the landowner has not sufficiently demonstrated commitment to proceed with the proposed development and is considered to be seeking to warehouse the permit. Is there any evidence that we have about warehousing the permit compared to other permits at Pentridge? I mean, I just don't see any evidence provided to support dot point B. I don't even know what dot point C means. These intervening circumstances as bearing upon grant or refusal. Some clarification on that would be good. And once more, dot point D refers to more changes of policy, which I have no idea about, which are not stated. What those changes of policy are and how do they impact on Pentridge then and now? I just think this resolution is not really being given enough thought of by the mover and seconder, as opposed to the very detailed report that we have by council officers.
I'm happy to reply to that. Councillor Tapanos, if you had read the report in detail, you would see outlined in the report the detail about the Coburg Activity Centre, which you have been on the past 2 council terms. And in the previous council term, the Coburg Activity Centre was exhibited and approved by the minister. That is a very significant change in planning policy. And it also indicated through that planning scheme amendment indicative heights. While they were discretionary, we asked for mandatory controls of 10 stories. There were indicative heights that we would assess any future application against. This exceeds those heights. So what we are offering is that if a fresh application came for this site, the activity centre controls are much stronger than they ever were, because now they're in the planning scheme. And we believe that given this original application came in 2012, so we're 5 years later, you want to have evidence. Time is also evidence, and there are reasons why there are time limitations for permits is because we want to see commencement of construction according to the planning policy otherwise of the time. Otherwise, if somebody gets a permit they can build in the next 20 years, how can we guarantee that any progress that we have seen in planning scheme, law and regulations aren't adhered to in future plan? That's why there are time limits. So that is my reason for supporting this, because I think there have been significant changes and I would like to have seen the amendment respond to those changes. We have been talking about Pentridge, the master plans. We have, as a council, unanimously decided to review the master plans in collaboration with each of the site owners because we want to see a better outcome. And I think this goes some way to helping us on that path.
So just to clarify, you're saying that the heights have changed. Is that the
Yes.
material impact that it's got on this application?
Councillor Bolton, do you wish to add anything further?
I'll
Yep.
leave
Okay.
I'll wait and hear further discussion first.
Thank you. Any other comments from councillors?
I had dot points B, C, and
I
D.
believe I've responded to your questions, Councillor
How about
Tapanos.
warehousing?
Are there any further comments from councillors?
I've already responded to that.
Councillors, let's go into formal meeting procedure. Councillor Farnley.
I just wanted to just put my position out there. I guess I'm supportive of breaking it up, Councillor Chair, if that's possible, because I do like dot points 2, 3 and 4.
Yep.
That really encapsulates discussion around developer working with us and to reduce some of the permit or building of the bottom of the south end adjoining the council land. The reason I'll be voting against dot point 1 is I really want to send a message to developers out there that I'm in favour of you coming to planning officers like Narelle, like Phil, and working with us for good outcomes on behalf of the community. And we're willing to work with you and extend it and work with you to mould planning outcomes to make sure the community really benefits. And I think that's exactly what's really happening here, rather than warehousing or other type of things.
Thank you,
That's the
Councillor
reason I'm
Farnley.
voting against that one.
Thank you, Councillor Farnley. I'm sorry. We're in formal meeting. I can't enter into debate with the gallery. Apologies. You did have an opportunity to speak at the previous time. I'm sorry. We're in formal debate. I need to. I'm sorry. We're not able to enter into debate at this time. I'm sorry. We're relying on the advice of our planning officers. We are not able to. We're not able to enter into debate at this time. I'm sorry. Is there any further comment from councillors?
Yeah. I would
Councillor
like to hear
Tapanos.
the debate. So I move to suspend standing orders to hear the applicant.
Okay. All right, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour of suspending standing orders to hear from the applicant? All those against? I declare that lost. I think there's no further debate. I'm going to put the motion to the vote and I'm going to move them separately. Yes, Councillor.
If you were to the chair to actually separate them out.
Yes, I will separate that. I will move them, grant the request to separate them out. So we'll first vote on dot point 1. All those in favour of dot point 1? All those against? I declare that carried.
Can I get a division?
Okay, Councillor Bolton has called for a division. All those in for, please raise your hands for the motion. Yeah. I'll just, all those in for, because people can change their votes, I just want to make sure nobody's changed their vote. All those in for, all those for, Councillor Riley, Martin, Kavanagh, Ratnam and Bolton. And Ratnam for. Yep, and Afanli and Tapanos. And all those against? Please raise your hands against. Yep, Councillor Tapanos and Afanli. Thank you. I'll now move to dot point 2. All those in favour of dot point 2, can you see that on your screens? All those in favour of dot point 2? Declare that carried unanimously. And all those in favour of dot point 3? Declare that carried. And all those in favour of dot point 4? I declare that carried. I'll now turn to the planning officer to outline the next steps.
So the committee has resolved its position for the upcoming VCAT hearing in accordance with the alternate motion tonight. So council its legal representation for the upcoming hearing, and VCAT will decide the matter from here.
Thank you very much. On that note, I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you everyone for your patience and for your work that went into tonight.